Welcome. Welcome to this Women and Digital Inclusion, candid conversations around the cost of living and not only surviving it, but also thriving through and growing through it. Today we have double portions. We are going to hear from two amazing facilitators who are going to share with us their vast experiences and expertise in the areas around housing, around investments, around debt, and we are going to leave with a very, very rich toolkit on how we can handle all those things in our day-to-day lives. So for those of you that are new to this platform and to our conversations, Women and Digital Inclusion is a third sector voluntary organization based right here in Merseyside, and our mission is to end digital poverty to engender social equity in our communities right here. And we do that by supporting the Black migrant woman and family with tools, resources, training, and any which way we can help them to be able to step up to the table where decisions about us are made. And today, most of you have heard from Mr. Francis Langley, who is our residential social housing expert. And he has a wealth of knowledge in that space. And so if you have questions around social housing, around rent, around buy-to-let, around God knows what, I'm not going to put questions in your mind. Please feel free to ask, because Francis is here to answer your questions. And I don't know whether I'm allowed to speak this, but I'm going to share this. Please extend your condolences to Francis, because he has lost his mother-in-law. And despite that, he has chosen to be here with us to support this conversation. And basically, we are blessed to have somebody who's that committed despite their personal loss. We also have our poverty warrior, Rehema Kamoya, back today. Basically, we've got so much great feedback from the sessions we've had with Rehema. And today she's going to support our journey through debt and any questions you might have. Rehema is a pharmacist by profession, but she loves property. She loves all things investment. She loves all things personal growth, and she has decided she's a warrior against poverty, and she will not let that stand in her way or let anyone who comes across her energetic space to suffer through that unless they're not willing to be supported. So we are very excited to have you with us, our facilitators. We have two options. We can give it another 2-3 minutes and let more people come in, or we can hit the road running with those that have honored us with their presence on time, so that those who come late, well, they can watch the replay for the bits they've missed out. Rachel will also be co-moderating this session with us. We're going to hear from Francis Langley first, and then we'll be hearing from Rehema after. So I hope we are good with that. And without further ado, I'm going to invite Francis to take over. I'm very excited. I am a student today as well. So thank you for gifting us your time despite the challenges. Thank you for giving us your experience and expertise when we ask you to come back again and again, Rehema. Please take it away, Francis.
Thank you, Julie. As usual, the old woman can talk for Britain. Right. I like the way you've introduced me, but when it comes to buy to let and the other side of it, I think Rahima is actually the expert on that, because I listened to her the last time and I think she educated me so much. It's unbelievable. You know, she was feeding me energy, and I loved everything I heard that day. If you guys have a chance, go back, and I think it's on Wodin's website or the Facebook. Go back and listen and watch that. It was really, really good. There was quite a lot of stuff that I learned from it. Okay, I've done the house on beta bit before, so I'm going to do it again today, and I've added some more bits on it. So, moreover, I'm going to concentrate on Liverpool, because Liverpool Merseyside, and if there's any other questions around housing, please feel free to send it down to us. And if I can't answer it today, I will get back on to Julie and pass on that information, because housing is a complex area and it's not everywhere and all over the place that we understand. I know a lot more about Liverpool because I've worked in different housing sectors in Liverpool. We are going to concentrate on getting how to look for a house, how to get a house, what you need, damp and mold, which is a big thing at the moment. So I'm doing quite a lot of work around damp and mold at the moment, and I'm also an environmental health graduate. So I've done a lot of work around the EHO side of it and what you're supposed to be doing and what the council can do. So if you're going through problems like that, please give me a shout. I'm here. Okay, how to get a property in Liverpool? Um, you can go through property pool application, which I'm sure a lot of people know about if you live in the Merseyside. You can go through Zoopla. You can contact private landlords. You can check the Echo every Thursdays and Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, and different websites. But these are the ones that I've seen, and these are the ones I've used over the years. Okay, you've got two types of tenancies, which is residential social landlords, private tenancy. A lot of people think that is council tenancies, but Liverpool City Council do not have tenancies. They have got residential social landlords like Toros, plus Dane, and the other ones that are around Liverpool. But they themselves don't manage any. They don't manage tenancies. They haven't got council properties that they give out to people. Because I've heard so many people, especially the black people in Liverpool, saying that we're looking for a council tenancy, and it's hard explaining that to them. The properties that they used to have, they've sold them to LMH, which is now Toros Housing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for the council house, you will not get one. Liverpool City Council haven't got it.
No.
Okay. Going from there, let's look at applying for the tenancy. Property pool. All this will be, Julie will have all this at the end of the slides. Mm-hmm. So if you need them, please contact Julie. If you want to contact Halton, which is part of Merseyside, the phone number is there, which is 0151 510 5222. But let's concentrate on Liverpool more because a lot of people live in Liverpool. To register on property pool, you need to basically your national insurance number. You need to go on the website, fill in the application form. It will basically tell you exactly what they need for you to be able to do that. There's a lot of information on property pool application, so I don't want to bore you with all that information. But if you go on the website, you will see everything that they're asking you for. I always say to people, if you get confused, don't sit there and think that there's no help. Toros Housing, I can say, one of the true housing association in Liverpool that you can actually walk in and speak to someone. They actually down you by the opposite the Beckenhead Tunnel. If you go into Liverpool City Centre, if you ask anyone in Liverpool City Centre, they will show you where Toros Housing is. If you can take down the application form down there, they're very helpful. They can help you with it. Go down there if you're looking for a property, fill in the application form. If you get stuck, go down and ask questions. You've got the likes of Julie, you've got the likes of myself. We can help you to do it. Julie's got my phone number. The form is not complicated, but for someone who's never done it before, you can get confused with it. And if you make a mistake with it once, for you to correct that mistake, it's a lot of problems. So it's best for you to get it right from the on-go. So, like I said, if you need that information from Julie, you'll get it. Julie's got all the information that I'm talking about today. So go on your property pool, put in your, it needs the information that they're going to be asking for. You put in all the information in. If you get confused, give us a shout. We can come in. My phone number, Julie has got my phone number. So Julie, do us a favor, put my phone number on it for people to get, for them to have my phone number. It's not something that I hide from people. It's all over the place. Once you've gone on property pool, you register on property pool, you have to be bidden. And this is one of the problems that a lot of people have got. They go on it, there's not many properties on it, and they probably have one or two properties because there are different kind of bands. You've got band A, B, C, D. Those are the four bands that you're highly likely to get a property. If you're on band E and F, that means that you've got debt somewhere along the line, or there's some antisocial behavior along the line, which it makes it really difficult for you to get a property. The one-bedroom property for a single person, I can say there are times it's non-existent. I've known people to be on property pool for about 6-7 years and they haven't got a property. The last time we discussed this, people were saying that, can you complain about it? You can try. You can complain as much as you can. But I can seriously tell you that it might go into someone's ears. They might try and tell you that they're going to do something about it, but they can't do something about it because property pool, it's not an individual or a company's responsibility. It's something that they've actually sat down and made a decision for it to be the way it is. I don't want to say it's a way where they're trying not to give people properties, but hey, it is what it is. So if you've been on property pool and you're a single person for the past 4 or 5 years, look at the private landlords as well. Try and apply for properties. Go on Marketplace, go on Gumtree, look for a property. Just don't sit there thinking you're going to get one because you're on property pool. Mm-hmm. Have a look at your circumstances. Has anything changed over the past year or two? Is that information on property pool? I.e., is there a medical? Anything to do with your medical? Has your family life increased? Have you got a child? This information, if it's not on property pool, then it's not in existence. So basically, they are not going to take that into any kind of system for you. So you have to go back and talk about it. Unfortunately, we Black people don't do it. We don't give information. We don't update. We do not update our applications. I know that for sure because I've been doing this for a long time and I've met a lot of people in the same position. So always look at your circumstances. If your circumstances have changed, go back on the system, update it, send them information. At times when you send information on email, you don't get nowhere. Physically go downtown and say, hey, I am here. I gave the same advice to someone last week and they did it. And I got a phone call to say that the system has been updated. Because the person said to me, oh, I've been on property pool for a long time. I'm not getting nowhere. And I'm like, have you been down to the office? No, I haven't. Why not? I haven't got time. You make that time. Because if you don't go down there, they're not going to change the system for you. So that's why I'm saying we Black people don't do it. Because we always saying that we haven't got time. And the reason why she said she didn't have no time was because she's a student. You cannot be a student all the time and forget that you've got a personal life as well. So make sure you update all your information as time goes on. Okay, let's move away from property pool. Has anyone got any question about property pool? Because it's a lengthy thing. I don't want to be sitting here discussing all that. Any information on property pool before I move away from that? If you've got a problem at the moment with property pool, this is your opportunity for me to be able to help you there. Okay, let's move on from there.
Questions will probably come in later.
Okay, the next thing I've got done is bedroom tax. Bedroom tax is a big thing, and a lot of people end up basically being, I don't want to say they end up being a problem for them, boy. It is a problem, no matter what the way we look at it. Because what is bedroom tax? Basically, if you are in social housing and you've got more rooms that you're supposed to have, or basically it's not about over-occupied or under-occupied. Typical example, if you've got 3 children in your house and they're under 10 years old, in our mind, we think that because we've got 3 children or 2 children in the house, and you basically live in a 3-bedroom property, you've got 3 children, and both of the children are under the age of 10. They'll ask you to pay bedroom tax. A lot of people will fall under that issue. And when they ask you to pay bedroom tax, you've got a choice there. You can apply for what you call discretionary housing payment. Again, I dealt with the same issue 2 weeks ago. Discretionary housing payment is something that the local council can give you. A lot of Black people do not apply for it. Either they don't know that they can apply for it, or because of the form, they refuse to do it. If you have got bedroom tax, please contact the likes of Julie. Julie, I'm still going to bring your name here. The likes of Julie or myself will support you, have a look at it, and help you to do it. If both your children, if you've got a boy and a girl and they're under 10 years old, they'll ask you for you to pay bedroom tax. If that child, one of them, is 10 years older, I've got to the age of 10, and you're still paying bedroom tax, please stop paying that bedroom tax and update the system. If you do not update the system, they will still come to you and ask you for that money because the system doesn't update itself. I know at times we do forget about these things. That's what I'm saying. Check the ages of your children. Go home and check them. If one is over the age of 10, then please, if you know you can't be, if you're unable to do it, give Julie a call like I said, Julie's got my number. We'll have a look at it. We'll support you. We'll help you to go through that. If you're still in the process of you paying your bedroom tax and you haven't applied for discretionary housing payment, give us a call. Do not be scared of filling that form. At times you'll fill the form, and unfortunately, they'll come back to you and say you do not qualify for you to do it. Appeal against it. Do not be scared to appeal. The more you appeal, the more somewhere along the line someone is going to listen to you. And when you're appealing, make sure your circumstances are on that application. That is the reason why I said, give us a call. I know Raima is looking at me and I'm thinking, hey, because I know she knows a lot about this as well, but she's another expert in this field. So you've got Raima sitting here, you've got me, you've got Julie. This is why we're doing things like this, for us to be able to help other people. Bedroom tax, like I said, give us a call if you're unable to do it, and we'll help you to fill the discretionary housing payment. Okay, let me move away from bedroom tax. The opportunities there. For those of you that are in private tenancy, you've got what you call the local housing allowance. I know Raima, when I listened to Raima the last time, I heard her discussing something like this. So I know I don't want to go through over the same thing, but for those in Liverpool, I'll just say if you're not aware of it, if you live in a house, a shared house, your local housing allowance is £65.25 a week. If you're looking for the tenancy and you're a single person and you're looking to go and rent a room in a shared house, the first thing you need to do is check what your local housing allowance is. Once you get to know your local housing allowances, then you'll be able to actually apply. If the landlord is actually charging £80 for a room, do not go near it, because unfortunately, housing benefits will not pay the £80. What we're trying to say here is, before you go and rent a property, check. All this information that I'm talking about is on the Liverpool City Council website. Just go in and type in local housing allowance. It helps you because that's how you start getting yourself into debt and into problems. Go in, have a look, see exactly what the council is offering, look at what the housing benefits is going to be able to pay. Then it's a good start before you go into a property. For a one bedroom is £92.5, a two bedroom property, £108.16. 3-bedroom property, £120.82 a week, and a 4-bedroom, £156. For those of us that have got more than 2, 3, 4 kids, 4-bedroom properties in Liverpool, I don't want to say that they don't exist, but if you're on property pool, I will say to you, it's like you're looking for a salt in a big beach, because you're not going to get it. It's a nightmare. I used to work for, I spent some time in Liverpool City Council, and one of the things that I used to look at most of the time was 4-bedroom properties, because I was dealing with quite a lot of refugees. And to find a 4-bedroom properties, I was there for 12 months, and I think it's only like once I was able to find one. And basically, I had to beg to get that property. The property became available, and I was in a position to go and speak to the landlord and say, hey, we need to get this property. We've got more people to put in a property like this. And unfortunately, it was in Kensington. I don't want to go down the road of saying what Kensington is like, because you've got a finer side of Kensington, you've got a rougher side of Kensington, and you might end up getting a property that you're not going to like anyway, but it is a property, and those are the areas that you can get forward in properties. So, any other questions around that? Please send it through and I'll come back and answer them.
There are quite a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a phone number here for the discretionary housing payment, and website, and also the email address. If you need it, Julie, I've sent Julie all the information I'm giving out today. Julie's got it. Please contact Julie. I will have a look at the questions once I get through this, because I know Raima wants to jump in right now and do a thing. Private tenancy. Let's talk a little bit about repairs. Right. Before I go into repairs, the first thing I always say to people, try and have a look at your tenancy agreement. I said it's the last time, and after that, I had quite a lot of feedback from people that have never, ever looked at, they don't even know what is written on the tenancy agreement. The time I will say this, because I used to be a housing officer, housing advisor, I've done a lot of work around housing. I have never met someone who I've actually sat there or stood there with and tried to read the tenancy agreement with, and they were listening. All they wanted to do was to sign it. It's an agreement between you and your landlord. You need to understand what's written on it. If you've never read your tenancy agreement, please, after this, go and read it. It will help you to speak to your landlord, because without you knowing what's on the agreement, what is the point of you trying to speak to your landlord? This is where we make a lot of mistakes.
It's frozen, I think. Okay.
Go and read your tenancy agreement. Basically, what it says is, your private landlord, private tenancy, the responsibility of the landlord. They're responsible for the structure of the property. Like, for example, the walls, the roof, the windows, the doors, the sinks, the bath, the toilet. These days, a lot of housing associations and private tenants do not repair. They do not do repairs. I.e., if your toilet seat is broken, they don't touch it. I have to laugh about this on most cases because for one reason or the other, for people that are not technical, I've been to properties where the toilet seats, you physically have to go around the back of it for you to get the hinges at the back for you to get the toilet seat off. It's impossible for you to do it. I've argued about this a lot of time with different landlords because expecting someone who's about 60, 70, 80 years old to be bending around the toilet with a hand on the edge trying to unhook the hooks to get the toilet seat out when it's broke. You can't do it. Well, unfortunately, the landlords are saying that they're not going to do it. And unless you complain about it, there's a lot of things that we don't complain about. And that's one of the things that you can complain about, saying that it's impossible for you to do it. I don't want to go around about the repairs. That's why I said, read. Is someone trying to say something? I tend to stick more with your registered association landlords because if you live in a property that is an RSL, you stand more of a better chance than living in a private tenancy. The RSL are being monitored by the government, and it's not easy for you to get evicted from your RSLs, which is the likes of Taurus Housing, Plus Dane, and the other housing associations that are registered on Property Pool. So I always say to people, try and be on a registered social landlord. You have more of a better chance than anything else when it comes to tenancy. Okay, I'm trying to get down to repairs, which I'm coming down to damp and mold. If you have repairs, pick up the phone, call your landlord, and tell them about the repairs. If you don't tell them about the repairs, they're not going to come out and do it. One of the biggest problems we have is we do not pick up the phone. As a black person, I hate saying this, but I think it's because over the years that we've lived in Africa, we kind of like do not like talking to authorities. But this is what I've picked up along the way. We don't like talking to authorities. We don't like pick up the phone, and we don't like to report things because we think that we're becoming a problem to other people. Pick up that phone. It is your right to report repairs. This is the biggest problem with black people and damp and mold at the moment. We don't talk about it. My job at the moment is to check for damp and mold in houses and to check for repairs. I do it on a daily basis. At times I do 20 houses a day. So I see this on a daily basis. I talk to black people quite a lot. And I see the problems that we're facing. Pick up the phone, make that phone call, report the repairs. If you don't get nowhere with it, the next time you do a report, make sure you take the person's name, even initially the first time. Take the name, write the time that you spoke to that person. Most people will not give you the second name. The first name is okay. Write everything down, the name, the time you spoke to the person, and what you reported. There's something called a disrepair claim. I said here, look at Julie, come on. Something called a disrepair claim. You can claim that money, but we don't get told this. That's the reason why you pick up the phone, you call, and you will report the repair. Or most housing association will actually let you do it online. But I always say report it by phone. Call them, report the repair, make sure that you've taken all the information down. With damp and mold, they basically have got about 5 working days to come out and actually investigate it. But depending the level of it, but they still have got what you call the right to come out and investigate it. Make that phone call. After 3 to 5 days, you don't get no response, make that phone call again. And this time, make sure you tell them that you've actually reported this in the past. And if you don't get nothing in the next 5 days, you are going to put in a complaint. You've got the right to complain. Complain. If you don't complain, you don't get nowhere. A friend of mine says that you have to complain for everything, but I don't believe you got to complain for everything. Make sure you follow the process. The process is report it. If you don't get nowhere, report it again and tell them that you've reported it. And if you don't get nowhere in the next 5 days, you are going to put in a complaint. Trust me, that issue will get sorted straight away because no one wants a complaint and they don't want to pay this repair money. You've got the right. Make that phone call. Damp and mold, one of the biggest problems with it is at times it's structural damp. I will say most of the houses I've been checking on a daily basis have been issues where it's behavioral issue. We do energy work as well. And at times there's contradiction between the advice that we give about what people are supposed to do in the houses. And when it comes to damp and mold, what you're not supposed to be doing. What I always say to people, the windows, they have got what you call a vent. Most of the new windows have got vents on it. Most of the houses that I've checked where my black brothers and sisters live, they close the vent. And I go to these houses and say to them, if you close the vent, there's no ventilation coming into the property. And if there's no ventilation coming to the property, you've got a lot of moisture building up. If you go about between 2 to 4 or 5 people, the more people you have in a room, the more moisture you've got building up in that room. If there's no ventilation coming into the room, the moisture will settle. And when it settles, then you start having more problem. And that is one of the issues where behavioral problem coming. There's too much heat in our houses. Open the window. I say to people, open it at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes a day. If you do not open it, 99% of the time you end up with mold in your property because there's no ventilation. I know it's cold. Yes, Julie, it is cold. But open the window, let the fresh air come in, let the ventilation circulate. You know, you've got all this ventilation in some of the houses where they blow cold in the house. People turn it off. Report your damp and mold. Some of it is structural. And if it's structural, it's the landlord's responsibility to come out and get it sorted. But if you don't report it, they're not going to come out. And it will never get better. It is going to get worse. If you've got children and you've got old people in the house, they're going to be affected. For people like us who've got diabetes, we don't like the cold. The cold affects us more. And if you've got diabetes and you've got mold in your house, you end up having more breathing problem. You're going to have more issues with your diabetes. So you've got breathing problem as well to think about. If you're asthmatic, it is going to get worse. If you've got children in the house, you have a lot of problem with the children having colds, sneezing, asthma. It affects your health as well. So always make sure you report it. If the landlord is refusing to come and get it sorted, you've got 2 choices. Contact Liverpool City Council and speak to them. The number is, Julie's got the number. It's at the back of this, of the information I've given Julie. Contact the environmental health sector of Liverpool City Council. They'll come out, they will check the property, and once they've checked it, your landlord got no other way but to go and fix it. And this is where the disrepair claim comes in between you and your landlord. You don't need to go nowhere else, but you have to report it. And all I always say is report, report, report. Every time you report, you get a pen and a paper, or somewhere along the line, the time you report it, the person that you spoke to, and what you discussed with the person. Because that's the only way. Because at times they'll say to you, the conversation is getting recorded. Hey, I'm not going to go through all that. Well, what they say and at times what actually happens, I'll leave you guys to actually think about it. Like I said, it's part of the landlord's obligation to come out and investigate your damp and mold. So report it. Don't be shy. I'll give an example of a similar thing that someone spoke to me about recently that I had to give them advice. The roof of the property was coming down. They had burst pipes in the property. So they contacted me asking if they can get a plumber to go in and get this property sorted out. And then they will not pay the landlord and they'll just take the money off from their rent and basically don't pay the landlord the rest of the money. My first worry with that, because I know that's the first thing that'll come into mind. If you're having problems with your landlord and you're not getting nowhere, all you want to do basically is fix the property because that's where you live. Don't do it. The reason why I'm saying don't do it, the first thing you need to do, report it to Liverpool City Council. You've got the homeless prevention team. That's what they're there for. If you called, again, Julie's got the number. Call them, the homeless prevention team. I used to work very closely with them. They will speak to your landlord and get your landlord to actually sort out the repairs. The environmental health team will come out and check the property, because most of these whole properties that we live in it has got asbestos. So if you're going to tamper with a roof and not knowing if there's asbestos there, or the person that you're bringing in don't know nothing about it, anything happens, basically it's your responsibility. So the best thing for you to do, report it. Because if you report it, Liverpool City Council, the environmental health team come out and check the property. And if there's asbestos in the property, which you're not supposed to disturb, and the roof is actually sinking, that might just be the problem or the solution to all your problem, because basically you're homeless. That property is not fit for purpose. You're not supposed to be living there, especially when they've got children. So I had to call them and say to them, don't do it. I gave them the number for Liverpool City Council, and that was the advice I gave them. So if you've got any issues with your landlord, call Liverpool City Council. Speak to them, and basically someone will call you and help you with whatever problems you're having.
There's a question around data protection. Can I record the conversation instead, just in case the other person's not recording, even if they claim? Every organization claims they're recording the conversation. As we know, when you request for proof of that conversation, then they tell you some stories. So can I record the conversation?
Can you record a conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Is a person asking if they can record a conversation?
Yeah.
I will say, fortunately, I do it all the time. I cannot advise the person to do it, but I do it all the time. And trust me, it has saved my life on loads and loads of occasions. Because I'm talking to you on the phone and you're telling me that this conversation is being recorded. That's fine. I like to record the same conversation as well. I've got the right to do it because I'm the one calling to make a complaint. In case tomorrow I can't get nowhere with that, I've got my own copy. So I'm not going to tell them they're supposed to do it, but I've done it in the past.
As long as you let them know, because they've told you as well.
Yeah.
Whatever that recording that tells you this conversation is getting recorded. So you tell them, for purposes of clarity, I'm going to record it too. And then you have the conversation. That way, if the thing goes further and it escalates, your recording is admissible. As Rahima says, if you don't ask their permission, then they can claim you recorded them illegally, you didn't get permission, privacy issues, la 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 la.
I always say with something like that, the law will come out and say exactly what you've just said. That if you don't tell them that you're recording the conversation, it will end up being that you didn't take permission. But at the end of the day, Julie, we've all got to find a way for us to actually get on in this life. And if we feel that we're not going to be heard, people will do it. And most of the time, if you tell me you're recording my conversation whilst I'm talking to you on the phone, I'm not going to be able to give you all the information. Because basically you put me in a situation where I've got to be very careful how I'm talking to you. And if I don't know the information I'm going to be giving you, I can't give you that. But it's always good. Tell them. You know, I've done it where I haven't told no one that I'm recording the conversation. Because once I start talking to people in 5 seconds, I know exactly where the conversation is going to end. I've always known. And one of the biggest problems we've got, I think most of the time we shout on the phone. I don't want to use the word we as Black people, but in my experience, once we get to that point where our temper takes control over our logic way of thinking, we start shouting down the phone. And I'll tell you on few occasions where I've been sat on the other side of the phone. When people start shouting, I always say to them, this conversation is not going to get nowhere because at the end of the day, you're not prepared to listen to what I'm saying. And I've had colleagues of mine, when I've sat next to them, as soon as the conversation starts, I know straight away they're talking to a Black person. I always, and I'll keep saying this all the time, and I said it to a few people last week, please, when we pick up that phone to make that phone call, even if we're angry, do not start shouting down the phone because people will not help you. Call them, speak to them, and get them to listen to you. If you're feeling not getting nowhere, terminate the call and make another phone call. But do not start shouting down the phone because we will never get nowhere with it.
I have found that when I'm calling officialdom, I say, is it okay if I take some notes so I have a record of this conversation? I've used the word record of this conversation. Now, for me, that allows me to record the whole conversation, because then I say, well, I have a record. I took notes, but I had to take a recording in order to take notes so I could, because we were talking, I had to hear. And also, so somehow I cover myself that way in case I have to escalate the situation. I say, well, I did ask for permission, that I wanted a record of the conversation, an accurate record of the conversation. So the only way to have that was a recording. Then it's up to them to say, okay, and then I say, but then you also recorded it, so you should have a record of the same. According to your telephone answer process, every conversation is recorded for training and whatever purposes, so you should have a record of it too.
Well, we've all heard what Julie said, so I think that's the best way to do it. Tell them that you're going to record it, and at least for clarity purposes. Before I finish,
Rehema also says put it in writing instead. Then you can't be misquoted. You will not get too emotional, and even if you get emotional in your writing, you won't go abusive, and it will be difficult to misconstrue what you've written as shouting, unless you put it all in bold, underlined, then you actually are shouting. That's what they say, that if you write things in bold and you underline them and in capitals, you actually are shouting at the other person. The other person reading it takes it like you are actually shouting at them.
Yeah. In bold letters. I don't think anyone likes reading bold letters. As soon as you see them, you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Well, it is what it is. You know straight away that the person is not happy and the situation needs to be resolved. I always say as well, if you find out you're not getting nowhere with a complaint with a housing association or something to do with your housing, you've got your councillors are there, your MPs are there. Please go and see them. I mean, over the years, I've dealt with a lot of letters from councillors and from MPs, and I've seen how quickly people in offices change their mindsets and run quickly to go and fix the problem. The numbers are, Julia's got them. Contact them. If you live in certain areas, just contact your MP or your councillor. Go and see them. We are here. If you've got any problems around your housing and what we're discussing today, please. If we can answer it right now, we'll be able to come back to us privately or go to Julie, and Julie will send it to us, and we'll come back to you. And whatever support we can give you, we will do it. So is there any other question you need me to answer, Julie, before I quickly do a runner? Because I'm still waiting. I want to sit here and listen to Rahima. She just feeds me the energy.
So apparently, is local housing allowance only for people on benefits? I don't know if you answered
that. What do you mean by people? Okay, I don't think I understand the question.
Is local housing allowance only for people on benefits? I think they were asking about the discretionary housing allowance.
Discretionary housing fund?
Yeah, I think. I could be wrong. Because I think that's when you were talking about that.
Your discretionary housing fund basically is, if you're paying your rent, I don't understand how, I'm trying to think how you can go to a discretionary housing fund to apply for money. But I always say, if you're not able to meet up your bills and you're having problems, and you have a shortfall on your rent and you're still having issues, apply for it. Because the discretionary housing fund is basically on personal circumstances. It's not a blanket thing. It's what's going on around your life, and it's not for the longer period. So they can give you a discretionary fund for about 6 weeks, for about 12 weeks, depending. They make a decision on that, but it's not something that's ongoing. So if you have issues around that, look at your incoming, your outgoing, do a budget plan, see exactly what's going on in your life. Apply for it. You've got nothing to lose. All they can turn around and say to you is, unfortunately, we cannot give it to you. And if you're looking for appeal, we can help you with it. I've still got some spare time.
That also, somebody was asking, did I hear help filling in the discretion housing form?
I haven't got a problem helping people. I mean, if you send it to me, I'll be asking you some personal questions. As long as you're ready to listen to answer those questions, no problem. I'll ask you the questions, and because, like I said, all it is realistically is your personal circumstances. What's going on with you in your life? It's the same thing as applying for funding and grants out there. There's some grants out there that can help you. Turn to us. If you go on Turn to us, you'll see some of the grants that are for personal and for personal reasons. So all it is, I mean, I've worked for different organizations over the years, and part of what I used to do was to apply for funding for like carpets, which I don't do it anymore, by the way. So I don't want someone to have a new house. They've closed all that now. So Martins in the field used to be very good at giving money for that, and something to do with that children fund as well. They used to be doing stuff like that. I mean, I haven't done it for a while, but I've got no problem in actually looking and see what I can do for people. And if you've got children, you've got grants out there that you can apply for washing machine and few other little bits and pieces for the house, especially if you're moving in a property newly. You can contact Liverpool City Council as well for the support scheme, and they can help you with fridge and little bits. You see, the good thing is, between the three of us, we've got quite a lot of information. If you've got a problem, send it to Julie. If it's something we cannot do, we know we can signpost you to somewhere that they can help you and support you. If it's something we haven't heard about, we'll research it. But you don't have to be on your own. If you've got a problem, we're here. Let's share the problems together. That's why we got stuff like this happening. Like some of us have been around. I started working from the days of refugee action and Whitechapel. I just kept going. So I've been around quite a lot on housing and support and working around people and issues that people are facing. So I'm always here to help. Julie's got my number. Send me a text. My name is Francis Langley. You can add me on Facebook. I don't mind. Send me a quick, hey, Francis. This is happening. So if I haven't got a solution for you, I will signpost to you. There's always somewhere along the line that can pick up that phone and go, hey, please help me. I've got this sister or this brother that's going through this problem. If you've got any housing problem, let me know. I've still got little contacts in places that I've worked that I can speak to people as well. So that's why we're here. And that's what we do. Any other question? Because I want to listen to Rahima.
I think we have a couple of questions, and then we'll pass on the mic to Rahima. Sandra, if you still have a question, please prepare to ask it. There's someone who says, is bedroom tax applicable in private rent? And I think then someone says, does bedroom tax apply if I own my property? So I don't know if those two are like in the same realm, or they're separate questions, but they're there. And then Sandra, prepare to ask your question after that.
Bedroom tax if you own your property. Is that a question? The bedroom tax, I don't understand why they call it tax, actually. I just don't understand.
I can explain that one.
Please do. I don't understand the name tax on it. It doesn't make no sense. Go ahead, Rahima. Help me with
I
this
can
tax
explain that one.
Okay.
The bedroom tax is actually not a bedroom tax, and using that phrase is very misleading. Yeah. Sorry, Francis. The bedroom thing is basic. I don't want to call it a tax going forward. Basically, what happened, the government at some point decided that different size families needed different size rooms. So it was only prepared to pay for a certain number of rooms. So if you've got, I think Kim was one of our participants last time. So an adult or a pair of adults can share one room, and then a pair of children or 3 children of the same sex. I think one of our participants, the children were the same sex. It doesn't matter if those children have got 10 legs between them or half a leg or whatever. Those children can share one room. So a family of the children with the same sex and a certain age, because the age is, I don't want to say the age because the age thing changes. Mm-hmm. So the same sex and a pair of adults, you're only entitled to 2 rooms. So that means the government will only pay for you for 2 rooms. You can go and rent a house with 10 rooms. You can rent Buckingham Palace if you want, but the government will only pay 2 rooms out of that Buckingham Palace. So what happened is families that were so used to, but we have 3 bedrooms. Yes, but the composition of your family is only entitled to 2 rooms. So if it's, I think Liverpool is £525 is what they'll pay for a 3-bedroomed family unit. And I think it's £450, something like that, for 2 rooms. So you go ahead and you rent a house that is 4 bedrooms. That is your business. They're not going to stop you, provided they will only cover these 2 rooms. So that is, I think that hopefully that explains the bedroom tax. Now, the thing that Francis mentioned is that your circumstances then change. So, for example, your child of 2 different sexes are teenagers now. Yeah. So now you're entitled to 3 rooms suddenly. It doesn't mean that so even if you're actually in a 2-bedroomed house, you can claim, this is what I was trying to explain to the participants, you could claim 3 bedrooms. So for example, if your rent, why would that be important? So if your rent went up to $550 for your 2-bedroom property that you're renting, yeah. So the rent went up to $550, but before they were only paying $450. Because of the composition of your house, you could claim these 3 bedrooms amount, and that covers your 2 rooms. I don't know if I'm making sense. So this is when people that are going to be evicted need to really think. So if your rent goes up, can you claim 3 rooms? Does the composition of your family enable you to claim 3 rooms and therefore cover the rent? But it's not a tax. It's basically the size of the rooms for each family. So one of our participants last time, and these are only participants, I've got recourse to public funds. So we had a participant who had 2 children of the same sex, and the participant and their mother who had no recourse to public funds. Well, according to the government, we don't care where your mother stays. It's got nothing to do with us. We will only pay for these 2 rooms. If circumstances then changed and your mother then could claim recourse to public funds, they would then be able to pay for these 3 rooms. I don't know if I'm making sense. So that's the bedroom tax. The other thing I wanted to add, sorry, Francis, when you were talking, I made a lot of notes when you're talking, is that if you're really struggling with the area, just move out of the area. Nobody said you have to move to live in Liverpool L1. You know, if you move a bit further along, I mean, I know Liverpool all the way down to Speke near the airport and all the way up north to Aintree. If you go down to Speke, I mean, I don't know about schools and everything else and family makeup. Some of those rooms, some of those houses are bigger.
Racial profiling.
Yes, there's all that as well. But nobody said, the fact that you left Africa to come here, it means you're willing to live with people that are not your own race. So move out. But genuinely speaking, don't be stuck in the area just because your neighbor, you know your neighbor or whatever. You might actually get a better house a little bit outside of where you want to go. So just keep that in mind as well. There was something else I wanted to talk about, tenancy agreement, about telling your landlord about the repairs. And again, I'm glad Francis used that phrase, Black people. So I'm going to jump on that one. Put it in writing. Write your complaint. I know it sounds really basic. Don't send a text. Send an email. Send a letter. Put it in writing. If you haven't put it in writing, you haven't complained yet. It hasn't happened. So you can phone me and rant and rave. I'll go to the judge and I'll say, actually, they never sent me the complaint. You need to prove that you sent me the complaint. So send it in writing, send an email. That information is really, really important. And as you said, Francis, somebody said, if you want to hide something for a Black person, put it in writing. That's the way it is. So if you don't put it in writing, it has never happened. You can phone 100 times. You can do what you like. You can send texts. Texts are not admissible in a court of law. You can't prove that text arrived at my phone. You can't even prove that the landlord got it. Somebody's neighbor could have picked up that text. So send it in writing, send an email. And yes, you do have time to send an email. And then the damp and the mold thing is, I mean, I'm experiencing this with one of my tenants at the moment. So the conversation went something like, I've got loads of mold. Okay. What has happened to the vents? They're blocked. All right. So let's unblock the vents. And what else has happened? Well, the windows are all sealed with sellotape. Oh, right. So there's only so much that your landlord is going to do. So open the windows, put some heating on to, so the house is not so wet and cold, and open the vents. She goes, oh, okay, I'll start. She actually needs to poke the vents. There are vents in the room. So if I go to court, I'll say, yes, I did provide the vents, and the tenant blocked them. So really it's about behavior and putting on the heating, because also we do like to save on the heating. And we also like to cook our African food. That takes 3 hours to get cooked. So we're always putting more moisture in the house. So again, this is just behavior. There's nothing that your landlord can do about it really. In the long term, the government knows it, and there's not really much they're going to do. There was something about making yourself homeless if you can't pay the rent. The best thing to do really is always speak to your landlord, whether it's your social landlord or your normal private landlord. Because most landlords actually want you to stay in the house. They don't really want you to move because it's a whole hassle getting a new tenant. But what you can do, and I mentioned this again, is you can sign over your LHA, the DWP, or whoever's paying your rent, to just say, you know what, can you pay my landlord directly? That is your golden ticket. That landlord will keep you on, and they will do whatever it is they can do to actually keep you in place. So it's about talking to your landlords. It's about whether it's your registered social landlord or your private renters landlord, to make sure that you solve this problem, because it's an investment for them. You're a customer for them, and they'll do whatever they can to actually keep you on. I know there's lots of films and programs about rogue landlords, but 99% of landlords are not rogue landlords. But the 1% make great drama, just like Homes Under the Hammer, I think, makes great drama on TV. So in reality, most landlords would be quite happy to keep you on. They pay insurance, they pay housing insurance. They don't pay contents insurance, although some can, and they will be able to claim insurance on your behalf. There was something about a toilet or a minor repair. A landlord can argue that a minor repair, you are capable of doing it. You are capable of putting a screw in the door. I've been in people's houses where the doors in the kitchen are hanging off, and I'm thinking, really, just get a screwdriver and screw the doors back on. So some of these things we do need to think about it ourselves. You can repair the toilet seats. You can put the door back with the screw. Don't wait until it's all falling off before you do something about it. And then when there's the 6 monthly inspection or 3 monthly inspection, have a list of all these repairs, and then your landlord will be able to just go through them slowly. The only thing is that, say I had to send somebody to do a minor repair, they would charge me £75 as a call-out fee plus the repair. And guess what I'm going to do to the rent when it comes around the next time? I'm just going to up the rent. So some of it you just need to also try and think about, the consequences. I'm not saying don't report the repairs, but some of the minor repairs, just like if it was your own house, you'll be able to do them yourself. Just a little screw here and there. Don't do electrics or anything like that, because that's just too dangerous. But do report them. Make a list at your 3 or your quarterly or whatever inspection. Then, that's what I do with my tenants. And then we have a list, and then I go away with this list, and then we do one job at a time until we get there. Most landlords will do that. There was a question about, can I claim LHA rates if I own my own property? It doesn't make sense. You wouldn't be on benefits if you own your own property. So no, you can't claim because you're the tenant. But if you were struggling to pay your rent, your mortgage, and you suddenly had to go on universal credit, they can pay the interest. So you talk to your bank first, and then the interest component of your mortgage can be paid by the DWP short term while you sort yourself out in terms of getting your mortgage sorted. So there are things around it that you can do. But speak to your team, speak to your property expert, speak to a friend in the field, and whatever problem you're going through, they would have gone through it. Somebody would have gone through it and give you a solution. So sorry to interrupt there, Francis, but I was making notes as you were talking. Hope you don't mind.
Awesome.
No, I don't mind because, like I said before, we're all, I think the three of us actually. Julie's worked in housing, I worked in housing, he worked in housing, so
Yeah.
I think we can all fight with this and battle with it, and we're all doing the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, when you mentioned about minor repairs, we don't understand about minor repairs, which, if you live in a property, it's really pointless because I do a lot of repairs report, and I see the amount of money cost the landlord for them to send someone out. And damp and mold is one of the biggest problem. I've seen damp and molds for someone to just come out about 200, 300, 500 pounds for just one visit.
Yeah.
And I was the one that actually went to check the property. And I will say that particular property was not reported to the landlord that there was mold in the property, till I went and checked it and saw the amount of mold in the property. And this is why I'm saying that we need to pick up that phone and talk. And because of that, and it looks realistically, that could have been prevented. It could have been prevented because all it was the windows were not being opened. Because if you're having a shower or the bath, open the bathroom window.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind the cold. My bathroom window is always open. So
Yeah.
if you can't open it for a long time, most of this double glazing window can be open a little bit and still lock it, and there's ventilation coming in.
Mm.
Open the window in the bathroom, the kitchen if you're cooking, open the window. Let the steam go out. If you live in a social, residential social property, if you haven't got a fan in the kitchen, speak to your landlord for them to come and fix a fan for you. I mean, let them check the property.
Mm.
A surveyor will come out, have a look around and see if you need an extractor fan. They'll come out and fix it, or they'll find a solution to some of your problems to reduce the possibility of you having damp and mold.
Mm.
A friend of mine was talking about laundering your clothes and putting it on the radiator to dry it. You're creating moisture in the property. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but by you doing that, you're creating a lot of moisture in the property. And what tends to happen is there's a high tendency of you having mold in that property because there's a lot of moisture. The windows are not getting open. The doors are not getting open. So the moisture is building up. And when it builds up, you will see in the property, I don't want to say sweat, but you see water dripping on the walls. And that is the water that creates, you find out that you've got condensation in the property as well, because there's not enough ventilation inside that property. So please go around your house, have a look on the vents, the windows at the top of it, there are vents there, open the vents. If you're someone that's very cold, just leave it open for at least 20 minutes a day and then close it again. I know Julie's very cold, so close it, open the vents, open the windows at least 20 minutes a day, let fresh air come in, ventilation, you're cooking, open the window. Like what Raima was saying, I cook as well, so I cook for about 3 hours. I know these things happen, but I'm very conscious about molds, you know. And you've also got, if you go to the likes of B&M, you've got mold sprays in there, you know. If your mold is building up, I don't like to tell people to go and buy them, but I've got it. I've been and bought it. And I sprayed mold spray inside the house. I leave it for about 20 minutes, half an hour overnight, and I clean it. And I find out that it does help with mold in the house. So I'm not going to tell you to go and buy it, but the opportunities are there for you to use them. But make sure that you speak to your landlord. Continue speaking to your landlord. That's what I always say to people. Send emails, call them. Your landlord can be your best friend. And there's more to what the landlords are doing. They're helping you to look for employment as well. The likes of Taurus Housing, they've got what you call a Taurus Foundation. If you're going through problems, personal problems as well, you've got issues with debt management, call Taurus. Say you want to speak to someone from the foundation. They'll get in touch with you. Someone will come out. They will sit with you. They will help you. There's a lot of help from your RSLs. Don't sit there and suffer on your own. Pick up that phone and make that phone call. If you're in a Taurus property, please call them. The people there, they're just waiting for that phone call. I do a lot of referrals on a daily basis. If I go and check a property and I see someone is having some problems, I've always got my cards. I move around with them a lot. So, and it's kind of like a fridge magnet thing. So I say to someone, have you got these? No, there you go. I put it on the fridge. You've got a problem, please call that number. So they call in the number. And I don't want to advertise this, but they do help if you are on, what's the word again? Pay as you go. If you're on pay as you go on electricity and gas, and you're on a Taurus property, speak to your housing officer.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to your housing officer. They've got a bit of money there as well, where they can help you with your top up. So speak to them. Don't walk away from them. You know.
All right. Wow,
Speak to them.
A lot of information.
Speak to them. They will come out. They will do assessments. They can help you. They've got food bank. They can give you food bank thingies. You see, a lot of people just think RSLs are just there to collect rent. That is not their only job. Because part of them, they're also charities. They're not only landlords, they're also charities, and they set up to help their tenants. So pick up the phone, call them, get them to come out and support you. Again, I don't want to use that word, but we Black people, we don't ask for help. It's there. So let's try and ask. If you can't ask, we're here. Talk to us. We will go and ask for you. We will be that middle person to say, hey, this person is going through ABC issue. They're struggling. Let us help them. You know, maybe if it comes from us as well, it can be, we might be your mouthpiece. And I know Julie will, you go to Julie, she'll get that thing sorted for you. Yeah. So my number is there. I think Julie shared it.
Yes.
Call me, send me a message.
I shared it publicly. So
I've jumped on Rahima's time. Hey.
It's okay.
All right. So thank you so much. Really, it is why we hold these sessions to support, to give you the tools and to connect you to the people, organizations, and resources that can help you in these times and beyond. And we really are truly grateful to Mr. Langley for sharing with us what you've shared with us today quite a lot, and Rahima for actually, validating and edifying it as well. And now we're going to hear from Rahima, like I said, our poverty warrior, our pharmacist, our support with finances and debt. And if you have questions, pop them in the chat, because that will be easier then to follow up and be able to get to them. And let me not steal any more of that time because the clock is ticking away.
All right. Thank you so much, Julie, for inviting me back. Obviously, I must have said something that was useful to be invited back. So instead of making a presentation for this session, what I did say to Julie was I'm quite open to have a conversation today about any of the topics that I covered last time. I know that practically I probably need about 2 days, like full-time days to cover all of my stuff, which we don't have. But I really particularly wanted to talk about debt as well, because I think in the crisis, this cost of living crisis, a lot of us are in debt.
Can I please answer my question? Can I please ask a question, please? Very urgent, I have to put somewhere.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Sandra. So I can talk about debt, or I can talk about conversation, questions, take questions from the floor, or I can talk about mortgages, because I know we did an exercise last time where we, having a look at one of the participants who wanted to buy property, and we were answering some of the questions that were concerning with the property itself. But I know we didn't touch on the questions that were concerning the person themselves. So before the bank can lend you money on a mortgage, they need to do a risk assessment on the asset that they are going to acquire. They are going to acquire that asset, not you. You just happen to be a vehicle that brings them this asset. And then they also need to have a look at you, can they trust you financially to be the custodian of this asset for the next 25 years? So we didn't look at that side. So I know one of the participants, we didn't look at that side of the equation, but there are definitely these different facets to purchasing property. So we can go into that, or we can just take questions from the floor.
I think we should do a bit of both because we definitely do have questions on the floor. And
Yeah,
there are quite a few questions around debt, credit ratings, how to correct that.
yeah.
People facing challenges with chargebacks by companies and payment processors that then claim you owe us money that they actually did not give you, but they call it a chargeback and you've got to pay it back, and we don't know how that happens. So there are questions. So
Okay.
and
We can do around debt because
Oscar is not here today.
I did a slide on debt, and I know we skimmed it, so I can do bailiffs, credit rating defaults, payment plans, priority debts, and all of that. So I wanted to talk about that, which I can do very briefly. So in terms of debt, briefly, there is good debt, and then there's bad debt, consumer debt. There's only two, well, there's probably more, but there's two types of debts. So when a lot of us are talking about debt, we're really talking about bad debt. We're not talking about good debt. What's the difference? So good debt is the debt that services itself. What does that mean? That means that the debt is able to generate an income, and that income then pays off that debt. And then you have a little bit left over for you to live on. So if you have a buy-to-let, for example, so the house is a debt, you bought it with a debt, and say that house is costing you £500 a month to service that debt. So when you pay money back, we call it servicing the debt. Those are the right words. And then so you got that house, this buy-to-let or flat or whatever it is you bought, it's costing you £500 to run that asset, but you're charging £1,000 rent. Yeah. So that is what we call a good debt, because from the £1,000 a month rent, you're taking off 500 to service the debt. So that pays the insurance, it pays the any loans that you may have on that. It pays for all, landlord, gas certificate, it pays for all of that. But then you've got £500 left over, yeah, from what came in. And out of that, once you've finished paying your taxes, depending on which tax band you are, you might have £250 left over for you to do what you want with it. So that's actually a good debt structure. Banks love that kind of debt. You can have loads and loads and loads of those kind of debts, and that is not going to be a problem. If you default on that debt, that means if you struggle to pay back, that piece of vehicle, that asset pays for itself. If it became vacant for years and years and years and there's no money, the bank will sell it, get its money back, and off you go. So that is good debt. Bad debt, the biggest bad debt we all have is the mortgage on the house that we live in. That's the worst debt that we all have. Now that might be shocking for some of us, because some of us think that our house, the one we live in, is the biggest, my goodness, is the best investment we've ever made, and actually it's the worst investment you've ever made. Why am I saying that? It's because this house that you live in,
I'm so glad you just said that. The number of people I've told when they come to me saying, "Oh, I'm looking to buy my house, or I'm looking to buy a house to live in," and I'm like, "Do you have one that is already bringing income?" And they go, "No, I want to buy a house to live in." And I'm like, "Buy that one to let fast."
right?
House, if you like.
So the house that you live in,
you live in your own house and you don't want us to buy.
So the house that I can talk around that as well, because the rules around that have changed as well. So the house that you live in is the worst debt it's the biggest liability that you're most likely to own or carry, because for the next 30 years or 40 years, you have to feed it. You have to physically go out and work and pay off the loans and everything else associated with this thing that you call an investment. And most of us, somewhere along the way, we fail. to service that debt for the next 25 or 30 or 40 years. The bank is waiting with open arms for us to fail, because then it's going to take this house off you, plus everything else you paid. So that's one of the worst debts that we all have. Having said that, it is one of the debts that we all need to have. So it's just one of those. But anyway, bad debt is debt that you have to physically go and sweat for and then pay that back. Okay, it's consumer debt. So the aim of the game is to keep that debt as low as possible. Okay, so if you've got your mortgage, try not to get all the credit cards and all the loans and all of those things. Sometimes you can't help it, but if you do, you just need to try and pay them off as quickly as possible, as quickly as you can. And a lot of us, we are normally, everything's going swimmingly. Yes, you're able to pay off card A and card B and loan 1 and loan 2. And somewhere along the way, maybe you fall sick, maybe something goes wrong, maybe you lose your job. Change of circumstances mean that you now default on this bad debt. What can you do? So within the bad debt, there are some debts that are essential debts, like your council tax or your gas and electric, and some not so essential debts, like your credit card debts. So if you're in debt, the first thing you do is write down your debts and acknowledge your debts. And you don't have to feel so bad about your debts, because it all happens to us. This country is in debt. Tony Blair's in debt. I think the only person, I was thinking about it the other day, I think the only person or people that are probably not in debt are the royal family, because they don't own anything anyway. But we're all in debt. So the first thing you need to do is, if you have an essential debt, divide your debts up into essential debts, non-essential debts. So anything related to a credit card is a non-essential debt. Okay? So if it's related to your credit card, whatever card it is, it's a non-essential debt. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to learn to write. So do not give them your email. This is top tip. Do not give them your email address. Okay? Give them your physical address, the people you owe the money to. And write to them and say, "Dear Tesco credit card, MasterCard, with the card number and whatever, I am struggling to pay this debt. I wish you to give me a bit of a break, or whatever, break of 12 months. In the meantime, I am going to pay you £10 a month." Because remember, so missing a step is that you're going to do a breakdown of your expenses and your expenses and your budget. So you might have, say, £100 left over to pay off all of your debts. So for your credit card debt, the first thing you do is write to them. Do not give them your email address. Do not give them your phone number. The reason why I'm saying that is that they want to communicate with you instantly. So if they can email you and say, "Well, we want our money back," you have to actually send that reply. So you're bringing them a bit too close to you. So send them a letter in the post, put a stamp on it, keep a copy, and say, "I am struggling to pay. I will pay you £5 a month. And I have set up the standing order." Set up the standing order, please, if you've said that, to start from the 1st of March 2024. In 12 months' time, we can have a review. Put that letter in the post. Start paying off that £5 a month. Okay? Do that for all your credit cards, all of them. Bam. They then have a duty to listen to you. And how are they going to listen to you? They're going to listen to you in writing. This is why I say do not talk to them. Do not send them an email. Yeah. They have to physically write to you. They hate that. So it will take them 3 months to write back to you to say, "Okay, we do understand and we'll review in 12 months. If you have offered them a plan, they have to take you on that plan. They have to take that plan. If they might write to you and say, "Well, we don't like that. We want a little bit more money," but they have to take that plan. So don't engage with that. So write to them, offer them some money. It could be £1, it could be £5, and start making the payments straight away. Okay, so that clears, doesn't clear, but it basically buys you time. You will obviously default on your credit card if that happens, and that default stays on your record for six years. But what it does mean, it gives you breathing space for you to sort yourself out. Once you default, obviously that credit card is now, they're going to block it. You won't be able to use it. But it's giving you the breathing space that you need to carry on with the rest of your, whatever you need to do. So that's credit cards. You can do the same to loans, unsecured loans. So if you took out a loan of, I don't know, £5,000, write to them, the loan reference, you're struggling, you're going to bill them, you're going to offer them £5 a month, offer 5, I'll explain why in a minute, offer £5 and pay that off every month. As soon as they get this, they have to put the interest they're charging on your loan or credit card at 0. So you might be paying 39% or whatever, they'll have to charge you 0. So automatically by doing this, you've reduced your interest you're paying to 0. Okay? Now, for secured loans, you have to come to an agreement and a plan. Again, offer the amount that you can afford, from £1 to £5, if that's all that you can afford at that time. Okay? What it does mean is that you won't be able to use these cards anymore. All right? So if you've got 6 cards, you might want to keep one card up to speed, because as soon as you touch all the other cards, they will all zeroed out. You won't be able to use them. I don't know if that's making sense. And then going forward, you will then be able to start taking control of your debt. Okay. If it's a mortgage that you are behind with, in the old days, especially in the 90s, the bank owns this house. You don't own this house. And in the old days, they used to evict people or repossess the property. But now the rules have changed, so that it's not so easy to evict you. So again, you just speak to your bank and you say, you know what, I can only afford £200 a month for the next 12 months. The reason why I say 12 months, it just gives you breathing space. But if you tell them 6 months, those 6 months can quickly be whittled away. But if you've got 12 months, you've got 12 months to breathe and sort yourself out. And again, write to them and say, I can afford this. Alternatively, for mortgages, you can just pay the interest only on that loan for a certain number of years until until you're sorted. Now, what will happen is that you will default. Default means that they'll register a default to say that you are now not reliable, and therefore you are not worthy of being lent any more money. That default will stay on your credit record for 6 years. There's nothing you can do about that. That's the way it is. Having a default is not life-threatening. You're not going to lose a kidney. But it does mean that in terms of borrowing money going forward, it does affect your credit rating. The main message I want to take away from this is, if you owe money, speak to the person you owe money to. Don't speak to them, but you know what I'm saying. Write to them, keep a file of all your letters, and then they have to follow the instructions, giving yourself that space to be able to deal with that loan. Now, once you've budgeted and now you've got money left over, now try and pay off the smallest loan, the smallest debt. Try and pay it all off, clear it, then transfer. Say your smallest loan is £500 and you're able to pay. So initially you offer them £5, yeah? But now you've got some money left over. You can then say, okay, this month I've got £45 left over, I'm going to pay it. Next month you've got 30, I'm going to pay it. Next month I don't have any, and so on, until you clear that debt. The next thing you need to do is, now you need to do your side hustles, and you need to really knuckle down and just clear your debt. If you've got defaults and debts of this nature, you will not be able to buy a property. So this bit is really, really important. So the bank will do an assessment on you, and they'll say, nope, this person is not worth lending money to. We're not going to take that risk, and therefore you will not be able to buy your property. This is whether you've got a right to buy or not a right to buy, or right to acquire, or whatever. You will not be able to do that if you've not sorted out your credit rating. So this bit is really, really really important. And that's the bit that we didn't do on Oscar's property. Now, the banks, in terms of how much they can lend you for mortgages, they usually can only lend you, or a decent lender will lend you up to 4 times what you normally earn. So if you earn £25,000 a year, that means that the lender will only lend you a maximum of £100,000 a year. So if you go and look at this swanky property that's costing 150,000, the banks will only lend you 100. That means you need to come up with the other 50. So because a lot of us don't know this, we either don't go out and try and buy property, or we go out and look at properties, oh, we'll never afford. So for example, if somebody earning £30,000 a year, or 30 maybe, I don't know, £30,000 a year, automatically you're only going to be lent about 120. So don't start looking for properties that cost 200,000. That's not going to happen. Even if you've got a right to acquire your own registered social landlord property, if it's 150,000, yeah, so you've got the right to acquire it, but the property itself is valued at 150,000. You're only earning 30,000. The bank will not lend you money to buy that property. So you need to bear that in mind. But some people do combine with their kids or their wives to see if they can afford it. Now, if there's 2 of you, they don't necessarily add say you both earned 25,000, so that's 50,000. You still won't be able to afford a £200,000 property, because they will do a multiple of the first applicant and then probably half the multiple of the second applicant. Why is that? Because typically it's a husband and wife, and the husband would typically work for the 25 years, but they know that biologically halfway or at some point in that relationship, the woman is likely to stop working because she's going to have children. So it's highly unlikely that she's going to earn 25,000 for the next 25 years. And that's the reason why they still wouldn't do a multiple of 4 of both your salaries together. They will do a factor of the second partner, but they won't do a multiple of 4 of that partner. So that is another way, that is another thing that you need to bear in mind when you're looking at property. The beauty of being an owner or a renter of registered social housing is that with registered social housing, you've got a right to acquire any property that is owned by the registered social landlord that they're selling off. So you could buy the house in Speak. Yeah, you could buy, you don't have to live in it. You could buy it. There's a caveat to that, and live in it. But, already you could be on the property ladder by buying a cheaper house in Speak. If you're part of the registered social landlord. Obviously, there's lots of steps in between there. But this is what I was saying, that look at a bit further afield when you're looking at acquiring property, or you need to be a bit more clever than just looking at it head on, straight like that. Let me see what else I had put on my slide on debt. Okay, how do we pay? Oh, bailiffs. I've got credit rating, bailiffs, and payment plans. So credit rating is a measure of how reliable you are on paying your debts. It's not a measure of, so somebody could have £10,000 in their bank, sitting on their bank account, and they can have a poor credit rating because they don't have any debt. So the bank has got no idea of how you will behave when you then get a debt. So you need to start building up your credit rating by getting out small loans and then paying them on time. Even if you've got a credit card that's got, say, £200 on it, you spend that 200 and then pay it off every month, or spend £50 and pay it off every month. That way you're already building a track record of telling the banks that you are reliable in managing debt. So your credit rating is just a measure of how reliable you are, how responsible you are in managing debt. It's not how rich you are or how liquid you are. So that bit is also very, very important. What I would know, and also with credit ratings, the banks and the big lenders, they tend to only look at about 3 credit rating platforms, and that's Experian, Core Credit, and Equifax. So they've got the other credit rating, that Clear Score and Credit Karma, and all these other ones that have come up, but they're not as thorough as Experian or Core Credit or Equifax. And that's the reason why the bank, so you could have a perfect score on Clear Score, but it might be terrible on Experian, so the bank will not lend you. So again, just look at your credit score in terms of lending. I wouldn't fuss too much about it. Just check it once a year, once every 6 months. Don't be on top of it all of the time. But try and build up your credit score as a measure of how reliable you are at borrowing money and paying it back. If you default or get CCJ, it will stay on your records for a county court judgment. It will stay on your records for 6 years. That means that you're in the naughty book for 6 years, and the banks will not be able to lend you any money. Yes, I've talked about offering between £1 and £5. Now, if you offer the bank more than that, or the other thing about consumer debt or bad debt is usually the banks have paid insurance. So when you default on this debt, the insurance pays them anyway. So that's one of the reasons why it's not secure debt. The insurance will pay. So don't worry too much about it, that somebody's going to knock down on your door and because you haven't paid that debt, because the insurance will pay that company anyway. But they will want to claw their money back. So just give them between £1 and £5, and then use all the other money to clear one credit card at a time. Once you've cleared that credit card, just cut it up, put it in the bin, and don't do that again. The whole purpose of credit cards is to make you bankrupt. So that's debt. Are there any questions there around debt?
A question around a chargeback, specifically with payment processors, like PayPal, Go Cardless, Stripe, Zero.
What was the question around that?
If you pay for an item or a service from a merchant through one of those processors.
Yeah.
Let's say PayPal.
Yeah.
And you pay from your bank, so the processor is just the conduit between your bank and the merchant.
Yeah.
But then you don't receive what you paid for, and you request a refund. But instead of going through the processor, you go directly to your bank, because that's where the charge shows. Shows that your money came from your bank and you want your money back. But then the payment processor then claims there's a chargeback because you got refunded, but now they claim you owe them. How does that happen? What are chargebacks?
Because the best way to think of it is that there's a bank, and this processor is it's like the thing that kept their money.
But it wasn't their money. It wasn't their money. That's the thing.
No, the bank.
We got somebody who wanted help with that, and the money came from their account.
Yeah, but if you think about
the processor, like usually PayPal is the best example, and in this case it was a PayPal challenge. So the money came from their account. PayPal was just the processor they used.
Yeah,
because you also get that extra protection with PayPal, especially as a UK resident. So now PayPal says this person owes them money, even if the money came from their account, and they got a refund because they did not get the service they paid for.
Yeah, because I'm trying to find an easy way of explaining it. It's like, imagine you kept the money in my house, which is the bank. So now you went and bought something from, I don't know, Francis.
From Francis.
So Francis came to my house
through Rachel.
Yeah, to take the money.
Yes.
The quickest way would have been for you to take the money to Francis. Yeah.
But that's what happens with
Right,
payment
no, the quickest
processors. They
way-
take the money, then they pay
That's
the
not, I'm
vendor.
trying to explain. So if you bought something from Francis, the quickest route is for you to give the money to Francis. Francis gives you the product.
Yes.
But in this case, you are busy because you're a millionairess. You live on Canary Islands. You've kept the money with me. In my, I've got the vault in my house. So Francis has to come to my house to pick up the money and back. Yeah. So you've bought from Francis, but you live in the Canary Islands or wherever you live, and therefore Francis has to come to me in Liverpool to pick up the money. In my building, I have got charges. I've got to pay rent, I've got to pay staff, I've got to pay that. So so you're paying, or Francis, between the two of you, you have to pay me that fee.
Is the fee the same amount as what it is you bought?
No, it's a charge. It's just a charge. It's like paying my rent.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's supposed to be a charge back. It's a small charge.
Yeah, it's
whatever
a small
percentage.
charge.
So it should be
that
percentage
charge,
of whatever they charge.
That's correct. So yeah, because you are, the benefit is that you're renting my building. Yeah. So I need to bill you, or someone is within the sector. I need to bill to get all my staff paid and whatever. So that's what that charge is. So wherever you don't use the transaction direct, there's got to be a charge. Somebody has to pay me, whether it is you or is that working for an agency. If you go and work through an agency, the person you've worked for pays the agency. The agency take off their fees and then they pay you the money. So it's just
in this specific case, the payment processor is actually charging the person the exact amount that they actually already paid and then got back because they didn't get the service. So they are now telling them that's the fee they have to pay them.
Well, they would have put it in their small TNCs, and most people never read the TNCs. We just tick them. And no, but they definitely would put it in their TNCs that they'll be charging you this if this happened. But most people only just tick. But yes, they do need a fee. Just like if you work through an agency, you need, the agency has to take a fee somewhere along the way. So that's all it is.
Wow.
We don't like it, but that's the way it is.
This is a large amount of money, and that's why it's very scary for the person, because PayPal, which is the processor, is saying they have to pay them the exact amount they were supposed to pay the vendor as the chargeback fee.
If that was their TNC, so this person needs to go back, revisit the terms and conditions of that transaction, and then challenge it from there. Obviously, it might have been an error. Errors happen, but look at the terms and conditions of the transaction and then take it from there. Yeah. So every agency has got different fees. So use different fee structures. Look at these fee structures in that. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So I think I've covered a little bit about debt. Did people have questions about mortgages or any of the questions that points I covered?
Okay, there's another question. Okay, this question is being asked, it's taking us back to social landlords. So I don't know why the person didn't ask then.
Yeah.
Maybe they were not, because sometimes people are on, but they're not on. Can you talk about social landlords offering part rent, part buy? Is it worth going into that arrangement?
Right. It's that shared
ownership?
Shared ownership, yes. So
I think it is.
It is that shared ownership. Now, this is my own personal view, not a view of, across the board. Typically, if it's shared ownership, it's typically new build, because the registered social landlord just needs to raise capital. They need to raise money from someone. They need to rip somebody off. So they typically don't offer this shared ownership on old properties. When we had a look at the house last time we were buying, it was a new build. And I said, this is me personally. If I see a new build, I run 100 miles the other way on foot. I don't even look back because of all sorts of problems with new builds. So typically it's a new build. I'll be surprised if it's not. Typically, I think they give you 25%. They have determined the value of that property. They're the developer. They have determined the value of that property. If you have a look at new builds, in fact, we can probably have a look at it now on Rightmove, it's typically going to be at least 50% more, 50% more than the average house on that street. The way the market works in the UK is that the value of your property is the average value of the street or in that area. That's why when we had a look at the house last time, I said to the participant, your house is not worth more than 125, I think it was, because we looked at the value of the property. Now, new builds, they're usually priced higher, typically 50% higher. Now, they then give you these super duper products like buy it from us, 5% down, you put in all the carpets, you can choose the color of your taps, all that nonsense that doesn't add value. But because most people are new buyers, they haven't got a clue that this doesn't add value. They just think that they're buying the greatest things in sliced bread. And then they give you a product. That means they help you to finance this property for the first 5 years, because they know that after 5 years, they're going to walk away from you. But they've locked you in. So then, in 5 years' time, your house needs to then be valued independently by a bank, because they'll help you to finance this product for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you're on your own. They say, right, we don't want to finance you anymore. Can you please go to NatWest or Halifax or whoever? So you will happily walk down to Halifax and say, my house is worth 200,000. Halifax will come and say, your house is worth 150. You've already got a mortgage of 200,000 on this asset that's now worth 150. You're already negative equity. You're in a lot of trouble. Now, you've got two options.
Okay. I need to see you scrubbing yourself, okay?
Yeah, so you're now trapped because this house is now not worth what the developer told you it was worth. And you've got the option, you can either continue renting it off them for the next 15 years, or you can continue renting it off them for the next 15 years, or make yourself homeless. But you'll go with this 50 grand debt because the bank will only lend 150, but you've still got that 50 on top that the house is not worth. So typically it takes 10 years for the new builds to come up to the same level as the houses on the street. So you've got to wait it out for 10 years for this house to now be worth that 150 or 175. That's a lot of misery in that time. Plus all the other terms and conditions of shared ownership. Now, typically it's a leasehold. So you've got the negative equity, but you're also trapped in this lease because now the lease is less than, 100 years or whatever it is. And now a house that is under 85 years is unmortgageable. So you're going to be taking out a 40-year mortgage on this property. But by the end of 40 years, the lease will be under 75 years. So your house will be unmortgageable. So, but I'm not saying it doesn't work. It does work for some people, but you need to understand all the little nuances in all these beautiful deals that they're trying to give you. If you're really stuck, if you really want to go for it, call me, let's have a chit chat, and I'll see if we can unpick it. Alternatively, just get a solicitor, pay a really, really good solicitor to have a look at this deal for you. Even if you pay £500 to this solicitor to look through this deal and break it down and make sure that it means what it says, it's really, really worth it. £500 will save you £50,000 of misery. Remember also that typically these shared ownerships are first-time buyers. So first-time buyers typically are very small families. So it's a husband and wife, maybe a baby of 2 years old or under.
And they insist you have to live in it.
Oh, no, you definitely have to live in it. Yeah, those are the terms and conditions, yes. But then in 5 years or 10 years, you've got 3 teenagers, the grandma wants to stay, and suddenly these 2 rooms that you can't swing a cat in are too small for you, but you're now trapped for the next 10 years. I'm sure you've seen the headlines. We are trapped in our house, you know, our dream home for the next 30 years. That's where that comes from. So I don't know if that answers that question. So what would you do instead? I would say look for a proper house without all these terms and conditions that is freehold, a bit further afield, and go and buy that house if you've got the mortgage to pay for it. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true in property. Any other question around that, mortgages? Okay, yeah. So some people, it might be worth, so somebody in shared accommodation, some people might be in their 50s or 60s and they can't get a mortgage. So this shared ownership might be a thing for them. And again, the terms and conditions will determine whether that deal is good or not. So to determine whether the deal is good, you need to look at the asset itself, and you need to look at the bank, what the bank is offering, and what the person themselves is offering. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions around that? I hope I'm not breaking too many hearts here. Oh, God. Any other questions around property? Or let me see what I had on my other slides. I think the discretionary housing, we talked about that. If you're stuck, discretionary housing could help you to pay the interest on your mortgage. DWP paying mortgage directly. The fuel crisis was something else that we needed to talk about. There's another new message. I need information on serviced accommodation. Okay. Serviced accommodation is another way to make money if you don't have money to buy your own property. It's the Airbnb or any other service. Typically, you need to convince the landlord, the owner of the property, to give you their asset to play with. That is a long conversation or a series of conversations that you may have. But and it really depends on the circumstances of that person. So that person may be moving away 100 miles away, they've got a job, or they've lost, or they're actually trapped in this shared ownership asset. Well, depending on if they will even let you Airbnb it. And then you can Airbnb that asset. But typically, most people that are doing Airbnb, you have maximum of 90 days that you can Airbnb that asset. 90 days a year, sorry. So if you're within that 90-day rental, you're fine. If you're beyond that, you're probably in breach of your mortgage terms and conditions. If you're in breach of your mortgage terms and conditions, they can recall the mortgage, as I mentioned before, which then means that you have to clear that debt, or you give the house back to the lender, and then you'll be struck off or blacklisted on the mortgage list. And it means that you will not be able to get a mortgage for at least 6 or 7 years. So that no lender will be able to trust you once you're blacklisted on the mortgage. So serviced accommodation, yes, people make money. If you're living in it, you've got up to 90 days that you can service accommodation your property without any problem. Some lenders have dropped it down to 60 days, but typically it's 90 days. Please talk about paying back after 5 years fixed rate mortgage. Is it worth paying another lump sum or invest and continue paying normal rates? This question, it depends. is this asset, is this property, this 5-year mortgage, a property that you're living in, or is it a property you're renting? So that's the first question I need to ask. If it's the property that you're living in and you want to keep your interest rates low, don't remortgage. Just phone your bank and say, I want to move to a lower interest rate. That's the conversation. When you're going to make this conversation is going to last you at least an hour. But write down what you want to do at the end of it. You want a lower interest rate at the end of it. The bank is going to do its utmost to put you off. That's why if I'm having this conversation, I get my tea ready, my cup of tea, my pen, and then I start writing down the objection as to why we can't do this. So the bank doesn't want you to do this because it's not going to be able to charge you a big fee. So it's going to put you off. It's going to say, oh, this is a really difficult decision. And, have you spoken to your independent financial advisor? And you say, yes, I have. Well, you see, I have this conversation literally every 5 years. So this is how I know. And then eventually you're going to say, I want to be put on the lower rate. And then the bank will finally pull out the final stick to beat you with. They will say, oh, there's going to be a charge if we let you do that. And then you're going to say, what is the charge? I know I'm saying all this. It sounds really simple, but this is what they're trained to ask you. They're going to say, it's going to be a charge. And most people, when you say there's going to be a charge, they run 100 miles. They go, oh, okay, I'll just go and speak to my financial advisor or whatever. And normally the charge, I think the most I've ever paid is about £250. Yeah, that's a lot less than remortgaging fee and solicitor's fees. So basically ring your bank and say, can you put me, I want to be put on the lowest interest rate. Once you've done that, you then need to say, this is the next conversation. You need to say, I want to keep my mortgage payments the same. Because what they'll do is they will then try and make you pay less so that they stretch the mortgage out a lot longer. Yeah. So you keep the mortgage payments the same. If you keep it, so remember you're on a lower rate and you're keeping the payments the same, that alone could save you 2 or 3 years on your mortgage. So every 5 years, that's the only conversation you need to have with your lender. Ring them, have your cup of tea ready or whatever, get your sandwiches ready. It's going to be a long conversation because they're going to put you off. They're going to scare you. They're going to whatever. They do whatever they need to do to make sure that they don't put you on the lower rate. So that's the top tip. It will cut out your solicitor's fees. It will cut out your valuation fees. It will cut out your new lending fees and any other fees that they want on top of that. So typically it will save you about £3,000 or £4,000. And it might charge you a fee of, say, £250. Even if it's £500, it's still a lot less than what you pay. So that's what you do. If your property is a buy-to-let, do exactly the same thing. But some lenders are falling out of the market. They're stopping lending. So you may be forced to move to another buy-to-let lender. If you've got equity of, say, more than 25% in your asset, definitely another lender will be happy to take you on. Is it worth paying another lump sum to invest and continue paying normal rates? No, definitely. I think I've answered that one. Someone just wants to do service accommodation as business. That one, what I would say is, first of all, get yourself an education. It's not easy. It's going to take you about 12 months of, I would say, if you want to really do it properly, you need to do at least 10 hours a week on this business. And you need to do it for at least 12 months to even begin to break even. You're going to learn a lot and get yourself a mentor. I mean, in Liverpool, I know two brothers that are doing it from Lithuania. And I've lived their story with them. And I think currently they have about 11 flats in Liverpool that they're renting out, and they're doing very well. But they've been doing it for, what are we on? Before COVID, about 2 years before COVID. So since 2018, they've been doing this. The
About
advantage,
5 to 6 years.
and they're only just beginning to break even. And the thing is, they're doing it full time, and they're builders. So anything that needs repairing, they do it themselves. So if you've got you need to build yourself a team of builders, get yourself a good electrician, good decorator, a good plumber, and then start to literally hunt for landlords through letting agents. And then eventually, and also you need to choose your location carefully. So I know Francis said, oh, don't do Kensington. Kensington, which is L7, I think. Is it L7, L6?
L7.
L7, yeah. I think that's probably where you're going to get big enough properties that this can happen. Now, you could do accommodation where it's like, say, a specific group of people, say ex-offenders or something like that, or old people, or, you need to pick a group of people that you're going to work as your tenants, and then you need to specialize in those people. So it's not easy. There's nothing in property that is easy. I know it comes in my feed that we will teach you in 5 minutes how to do it, but there's nothing in property that is easy. But what it does take is persistence, like any business, persistence, and then hopefully you'll be able to break it and get yourself a good team as well, and hopefully you'll be able to do it. What's your advice on the type of property to buy for a family of 5 making a total of 50K annually? Please, can you elaborate further? So family of 5 making a total of 50K. So again, it depends. Is the primary owner, the primary applicant, I'm assuming in this case, earns say 40,000 and the other applicant earns 10,000. That's easiest way for me. So 40 times 4 is 160. Yeah, and then 10 times 2.5. Okay, 3 at a push is 10 times 3 is 30. So 160 plus 30 is 200,000. That is what you're going to buy at a push. So if you go to Rightmove, and then if it's in Liverpool, I'll literally just look the way we looked on Rightmove. But again, we can briefly try and find a property for them if it's in Liverpool, if we have enough time today, and then I can tell you what I would be looking at. If the primary earner is 50, like the primary principal earner is 50,000, again, you're looking at 200,000. Again, it also depends on their age, because if it's a house, if they're say in their 50s already and it's their first house, the lender is not looking to be on the age of 75 or 80 at a push. So already, if you're 50 years old, the age of 70, 75 is really, you've only got a 20-year mortgage. So your age will determine how much they can lend you as well. So again, that needs to be taken into account. If this 50K is somebody in their 20s, they can then have a longer period. Somebody in their 20s earning 50K can buy a more expensive house than somebody in their 50s earning 50K, because they've got a longer time to pay that mortgage payment back as well. So all these factors, this is what I mean, that we need to look at the factors of the actual person buying, which we didn't look at before. It also depends on their health. So and the health of their genetic link. So if it's somebody in their, say, 50s, and they've got lots and lots of cancers in their family, the banks will probably say, no. Because the chances of them dying at 60, the bank might say yes, probably higher. So again, all these are the things they take into account when you're buying a property. If it's a property you're going to live in, because you're the primary source of income for this asset, so the bank needs to be sure that you're going to be around long enough to pay for that asset. If it's a buy-to-let, you only need to earn 25,000 to buy a buy-to-let, provided you already own another house. Okay? And if that house, the rent on it covers the costs, then the requirements are not so hard. So somebody in their 50s can earn 25,000, provide and buy another house, whereas somebody in their 50s can earn 50,000 and not be able to afford the house. I don't know if I'm making sense there, because the buy-to-let, the bank is relying on the asset financing itself. So the rent will be able to finance this asset. Whereas the house that you live in, you need to be alive and well and working long enough to finance this asset. But again, Amaka, that is something that we probably could look at like on a one-to-one or something, because I can't answer that question in one sentence, because we have to look at all these different factors. Thank you so much, Francis. Appreciate you. Okay, that's fine. I hope I've answered that one correctly. Yeah. Is there any other questions on property? Let me see what I had slide prepared. No.
I'm just checking the chart to see if there's something I missed.
Yeah. Property investment.
Fuel crisis? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't talk about fuel crisis. I did talk how to build your property portfolio. So if you want really interested in doing property and property portfolio, at the moment it's not as easy as when I entered the market, but you know, it just changes. Things change, everything changes. So what you need to do is you need to get yourself on the land registry first. You need to buy your first asset, because they now need to prove that you are capable of looking after a property before they can allow you to buy a buy-to-let. I think it's wrong, but you know, the government has changed it. That wasn't a prerequisite before. So once you bought your first property, you can buy it with your kids, buy it with your friend, you know, just get on the ladder somehow. Once you got on the first, you can also buy land, by the way. Just buy, you know, some land advertising space where you can then put an advertising, you know, those billboards. So if you see a piece of land, maybe 20 meters by 20 meters, try and buy that. Because then that gets you on the property ladder, and then just put an advertising thing on top and away you go. You've started making money. So once you're on the property ladder, you can then buy your next property. So the first thing you need to do is risk assess it. We can do that. I can help you with that. If it's your first one, I probably won't charge you, because I'm like that. I want somebody to get on the property ladder too. And then, but the key is you need 25% deposit. That's the minimum. For your own house that you need to live in, the minimum is 5%. For the house you're going to rent is a minimum of 25%. Then the next thing you're going to do is now buy that property in a limited company. Do not buy that property in your name.
Your names.
That bit is very, very important. You're going to buy it in a limited company. This is where somebody who was talking about pensions comes in, but there's caveats around that as well. So buy it in a limited company, and then just run it as a company. The rent comes in, it goes into the company takes out all its expenses, and then this asset as a company, you know, pays taxes. If you put it in your name, you won't be able to claim all these expenses. So that bit is really, really important. The government has changed that. It changed that, I think, in 2020 or 2021. So some of us that are been in the game a little bit longer, we're now trying to find ways to take properties out of our names, because it just doesn't serve you anymore. Once you've bought that asset and you wait a couple of years, the asset would have gone up in value. Then you remortgage, take a bigger loan out on that asset, and now use that money to now buy the next two properties or buy the next property. and again buy that either in that company or create another company or another 2 companies, lend the money to that company, and that company then buys that asset. Okay, so in the long term, you don't own anything, but you are the banker that is lending money to these companies. The beauty of that as well is when you do your tax returns, none of this money belongs to you. Just like the headline I put, the Queen didn't own anything except her name. And basically, you walk away almost tax-free, because there's loads of things that you can do to offset all those expenses. There's a lady in my property group who owns, I think she owns about 10 properties. Her tax bill was something like £300 last year. And this is all she does. She just lends money to one company and then another company. She's the director of all these companies, but that's basically how to do it. So try not to own any property in your own name, except your first one. Your first one, once you paid it all off, you then need to put it in a trust to protect it from the taxman, in case you're sick or in case you die or so that you're protecting it from inheritance tax. So that's another thing that you need to do. So there's a lot to do in property, but yeah, it's a fun game to play. And I'll be happy to help anybody who wants to play this game. There's 2 more messages there. Hi, I'm 57 years. How many years mortgage do you think I can get? Tony, it really depends. Typically, they don't. So 57. So I'm going to round that up to 60, because by the time you find the house, the deposit and everything, you're going to be 60. You might find it tomorrow, but for ease, I'm going to round it up to 60. So typically the bank wouldn't lend you long past the age of 75. They might push it to 85, but they probably won't do that. So you're looking at 15-year mortgage. So if you're going to be buying, what that means is you need to clear your house in 15 years. So I suspect that your payments, depending on the size of your house, would then be really high. Maybe there'll be, I don't know, £2,000 a month, depending on the house that you buy and where you buy it. And also it will depend on your health. So Black people, we're not very healthy. So they might not even push it to 75 if you've got history of early deaths in your family. So all these are things that need to be taken into account when you buy a house. So the message really is, buy your house as soon as possible, as young as possible. Alternatively, could you lend the money to your children and they buy the house, or you buy shares in that house? Because now you're leveraging your children's age against your age. But there's lots of legal things that you then need to sort out, because your child, if you buy it in your child's name, your child has got a right to throw you out of this house, and there's nothing that you can do about that. So your legal paperwork has to be really tight. So that is another way that you could look at. Or the other alternative is to invest in property with other lenders, maybe peer-to-peer lending, maybe get more money out of that, and then buy property that way that you don't own, or you own shares in that house. So there's definitely ways of doing it. But if you're buying your own house to live in, you're looking at about 15 years of lending that they can lend you. The other question is, I don't know if I answered that, Tony. I hope so. So just to clarify, at the moment, first-time buyer cannot buy to let. That's correct. First-time buyer cannot buy to let because we've got no proof. The bank has got no proof that you even know how to put a boiler in or a gas certificate, or it might even be a shock to you that you have to pay the council tax if your house is vacant. So they need you to have experience. The reason they changed this is because in the before the credit crunch, they allowed lots of first-time buyers to buy lots. So somebody who's a first-time buyer could buy like 10 properties, because with a buy-to-let, you need a smaller deposit. At the time you needed like 15%. And you didn't need anything else. You just needed a deposit and everything else. You didn't even need to work, actually. But now you need to earn a minimum income of 25,000 to be able to buy to let. That qualification was not there. You just needed to find a house, you paid the deposit, and the house needed to pay for itself. Those were the only requirements. You could even pay for the deposit with a credit card at that time. So it's just to let you know that as a first-time buyer now, and then what happened was people then went really broke because suddenly they had to fit a boiler, and they didn't know that even a boiler existed. Somebody kind of own a house, they don't even know how to know what a screwdriver is. So now you need to have experience of owning a property before they will lend you money as a buy-to-let, because that's what the government said it was the bank's fault for lending all this money willy-nilly. So now they put a stop on the bank lending you that money. How soon after you pay off your mortgage ends should you create a trust, and do you recommend any practitioners to help one to do so? The day you pay off your mortgage is the day you put your house in a trust, because the next day you could have you might need a new hip, you might be diagnosed with cancer, you might have dementia, and at that point you won't be able to put your house in any kind of trust. So the day you finish your last pound, you put your house in a trust. So get your paperwork ready before that. Your solicitor's good to go. You know the date you're going to make that payment. The next day or even that afternoon, just put your house in a trust. And that's the end of that story. The practitioners, there's so many different ones. I don't know any in Liverpool. Oh, it's Sean from Warrington. There's a guy called Sean Hughes from Warrington, who is on the property, known in the property world to specialize in this sector. I don't have my phone on me, but I would give you the number, but it's called Sean Hughes. He can help you or link you with the people to make the trust. But remember, there are different trusts and different terms and conditions for each trust. So when you're ready at that point, speak to Sean Hughes, and his number. Oh, I haven't got his number. I thought I had his number here. But he's in my group somewhere, and I can get you the details.
Yes, please.
But he lives in Warrington. Sean Hughes. I think he used to live in Warrington. He looks very young, but he's very, very knowledgeable. He is very young, but he's very, very knowledgeable. In what instances can I buy a house outrightly without a mortgage? Is it possible? Is it wise to do that? For instance, if I decided to sell my property in another country and decide to bring the proceeds to buy a house in the UK. Okay. You can buy the house outright anytime you want to. Nobody stops you. The Russians are doing it. And lots of African politicians are doing it.
Yes.
So there's nothing to stop you. However, because the UK is the most stable property market in the world, there's lots of unclean money that comes to the UK. So you need to prove that your money is clean. And you need to go through a solicitor who deals with those international transactions. So you need to find one. And then you need to give them all the paperwork to prove that you sold the asset, that it's the source of the funds, basically. That money, you can't bring it in a bag or on your card. You need to transfer that money to that solicitor in the escrow account. And then the solicitor then transacts that account. The UK solicitor, UK registered solicitor, transacts that account. So that's how you do that. You could do it with one of your dodgy solicitors. Lots of people do it, and I know people have done it. If the government or whoever, land registry, gets wind of the fact that you brought this money in and you bought this asset, and you can't prove that you went through that process, they will repossess this property, and they will put you in prison for it. They will, for money laundering, even if your money was clean. So you just basically need to follow the rules, bring the money over cleanly, and go through this solicitor cleanly. Yes, they will charge you a fee, and then buy your house in the UK, and you're good to go. And then follow all the rules, and they put you on the land registry. Can you buy this house or your child that is a student? That's another question that I get a lot. Yes, you can, provided your child is not claiming government grants and all sorts, student loans and all that. Because if your child is capable of owning an asset that's worth 200,000, they shouldn't be claiming student loans and student grants. And again, if that happens, they will be made to pay that money back. So again, that is something that you need to think about from an international point of view. Yes, you can sell another property in the UK. I think I've answered that question. And it is possible, it is doable, but because of the money laundering, especially by the Russians and the Chinese and the Middle East and the African presidents and their family, all this money laundering in the UK, they're trying to put a stop on it because of that. I'm trying to make sure that, Rick, it can take a year plus after your purchase exchange contract? What does that mean?
The question was, how long does it take to get the title deed after purchasing a property?
Oh, the title deed? Probably about 3 months. And I can buy the deed. You can buy any deed of anybody's property in the UK. So it's not a big deal. And also, when they put a CCJ on you, they go on the land registry and find out if you own an asset, and they put a CCJ and put a charge on that title deed as well. So title deeds here in the UK are public. It's a public register, and also it's really good for you to find out if that's another thing. You know, when we're looking at the house that we were trying to purchase last time, one of the checks we needed to do was to make sure that we go and find out who owns that asset, because tenants have been known to sell landlords' properties, unknown to the landlord and unknown to the buyer as well. So it's really important, as one of your due diligence checks, is you go and buy the title deed. It costs £3 in the UK to buy a title deed, and it takes about 30 seconds to get it downloaded on your phone or your computer. So it's not a big deal in the UK. In other countries it might be a big deal, but in the UK it's not a big deal. So it takes probably about 3 months, because once the purchase has taken place, everything is signed, monies have exchanged, your solicitor then needs to send these documents to the land registry. And then the land registry register you as the purchaser of this property. Given the number of houses that are sold in the UK every single day, it takes about 3 months to update that register. And it was a manual register. So I think it's going to be digitalized so that the registration probably takes place in a much shorter time than that. But yes, that's why it takes about 3 months. It might take 4 months. But it takes about 3 months. Does owning a property guarantee a permanent residency in the UK? It depends. Nothing guarantees a permanent residency in the UK apart from good behavior. So that bit I need to clarify. Well, it's not even that. Yeah, actually, yes. But if you own a house, if you own a property in the UK, particularly a commercial property, you are more attractive to the UK because you're a business person. And therefore, they're going to give you the visa or the stay. In Europe is probably a bit easier, because in countries, I think, like Portugal, and one of the reasons why the UK left the EU is because people were getting UK visas through the back door. So in countries like Portugal, and I can't remember, some of the Schengen countries, if you bought property worth, I think at the time was £250,000, and I think they're up to 500, but it began with £250,000. You were automatically granted a Schengen visa. And if you then had a Schengen visa, you then go to the UK, because the UK was part of the Schengen. So since we left the EU, there was a lot of debate around that. So if you wanted a visa, you wanted residency in the UK, you could buy property in Europe, because it's a lot easier, and then come through that way. And the UK needed to shut that door, because a lot of the Chinese the Chinese were doing it, and people from Africa and the Middle East were doing it that way. So right now, I don't know what, since we left the EU, I've not kept up with the rules. But yes, that is, if it's a certain amount of property you needed to own to be able to give in that residency. Even if you got residency in the UK and you commit a crime, particularly a crime that is custodial, they will remove that residency off you and they will deport you back to your country of origin. And it doesn't matter how old you are. When I was working, there was a place I was working in prison, female prison actually. And there was a young lady there born in the UK in 1984, I think, born in 1984. She has been born and bred in the UK. She was a teenage criminal. You know, these people that do crime when they're teenagers. Then eventually she got a custodial sentence when she was 30 something. She had 4 children born in the UK. She was born in the UK. She had 4 children born in the UK. She committed a custodial sentence. She was in prison for 3 or 4 years, I think it was. And she was really worried. When I met her, she was very worried about being released. The reason she was released, being worried, is because as soon as she was released, her ticket, her flight to Ecuador was already good to go. So the day she was going to be released, she was going to be taken to Manchester airport on a flight to Ecuador because her parents were Ecuador. She'd never been to Ecuador. She didn't even speak the language. She did argue that she had four British children, and they said to her, you can take your British children with you. We won't stop you from doing that. So there's nothing apart from good behavior that guarantees you residency, permanent residency in the UK, if they gave you the residency. I think the Shamina Begum case is another case. But this one, the Ecuador one, it blew my mind because the woman had never, ever, ever set foot in Ecuador, but she knew she was British. So that is just something to bear in mind as well. Can I get your contact in case, because I will definitely need your help when I'm ready to purchase property? Yes, you can. I can give you my email, and you can drop me an email. I'm not very good with the phone or Facebook or Zoom, as we found out last week. But yeah, definitely, I'll be happy to help you. I can drop you my email. Drop me an email. I'll type my email in here. And I will try and sort you out, help you out. When you pay off your mortgage in full, how do you make sure the lender removes their name from the title deed? Do you need a solicitor for this activity? Should all of this be sorted by the guy setting up the trust for your property? Okay, those are two different questions. The property that you're paying off is not your property, first of all. It's the bank's property. So the bank will keep their name on that asset, on that title deed, until you have paid it off. Once you paid it off, then your solicitor will sever that relationship between you and the bank, and then you own this asset outright. How long that takes is how long your solicitor takes for you to do that. Once you own this property, yeah, so then they can remove the name of their title deed because it's not their asset. They're not interested in it. They've got thousands and thousands of other assets. Should all this be sorted by the guy setting up the trust? Yes, your solicitor could be the same setting up the trust. You cannot put a house in the trust for as long as you don't own it. You can only own the asset once you finish paying the mortgage. So you can't put a house with a mortgage with a loan on it in a trust because it's not yours. Even if you paid, that's another thing, even if you paid all of the house and you could not pay the last £2, that house is still not yours. It belongs to the bank, and the bank has a right to take it off you, even if you only owe them £100 or £1,000. So you just need to be mindful of that. So as soon as you pay that, as soon as your solicitor sorts it all out, then the asset is outwardly your asset, and you can put it in a trust. If you put your house in a trust, you have to be of you have to be sane and of sound mind, and you have to be not unwell. You have to be well. Because once you're unwell, have a chronic illness, you will not be able to put that house in a trust. You can try, but if you die, the government has got a right to reverse that trust, which means that your estate would then be due an inheritance tax of up to 40% of anything beyond £375,000. I heard that they're trying to raise that to £500,000, I think. But I don't know if they have yet, because I've not kept up with that figure at the moment. But yes, as soon as you finish paying it off, and you're well, you don't have chronic illness, you then need to put that into a trust, or should advise to put that in a trust for you. I'm trying to look at all the chat to see if there's any messages that I've not answered. I think I've answered everything. I hope I've not bored people to death. Is it true that banks charge fees for early completion of a mortgage? That's true, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's absolutely true. And if you read your terms and conditions of your mortgage, that fee will be there. That fee will be there, and it changes every year depending on. So it will be higher the longer your term is that you're trying to pay off. So if you're trying to pay off, say, a 5-year term early, the fee is probably going to be, it could be anything up to 5% of the balance. And if you're paying it off a year early or 6 months early, that fee goes down. Because if you think about it, you're trying to deprive the bank of their money. So they need to claw this money back off you by whatever means necessary. Basically, in the property game, the banks don't lose, and you stand to lose everything. Yeah, but if you want to pay off your mortgage early, it's not a crime, it's a good thing. Just balance out, is it worth me paying it off early and paying off this fee versus paying the interest on it for the next 5 years? I don't know if that makes sense. So the interest might only come to, say, £2,000. Yeah, and you're paying off. So the fee might be, say, £2,000, but the interest over 5 years may be 10,000. So in that case, you might say to yourself, you know what, I'm paying it off early, pay this £2,000 fee, and then I'm done, and then we're good to go. Also, if you're in these jobs that you can't guarantee your income, then it's definitely a good idea to pay off your mortgage early. There are a lot of training people in property that say do not pay off your mortgage early. There's lots and lots of people that on YouTube or whatever that says it's a bad idea to pay off your mortgage early. My own personal view is it's not a bad idea, simply because, one, you have to take into account your age. Two, you have to take into account your job. Is it a stable job? There's no such thing as stable job. Even doctors are unemployed. And also, how likely is it that you're going to be sick? Because if you've got diabetes, if you've got high blood pressure, if you're overweight, if you've got all these things wrong with you, the chances of you not making it to the end are higher. That means the chances of you defaulting on that mortgage are higher, which then means that the chances of the bank taking this property off you, and they will take it off you, it's not negotiable, taking this property off you are higher. So take all that into account and make the right decision for you. Also bear in mind that this is the largest liability you actually carry. If it's the largest liability, why not clear it quickly and get it off your chest, and then move on. Any other questions at all? Sorry, I think I went on and on and on and on and on. Oh my God, it's 7:15. But I really just wanted to make sure that I answer as many questions as possible. I wanted to do an exercise where we could try and have a look at, if people have 5 minutes, have a look at an asset, a property in Liverpool. Sorry, I should have said this to you, Julie. Oh God, this is when Julie tells me to share screen and all that.
Hang on, let's make you a co-host.
Oh God.
There you go.
Here we go. Right. Here we go. So am I sharing my screen now?
Not yet.
Oh, holy moly. I need to go on the page first. I'm going to go on Rightmove first, try and find a property in Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to try and share. Share? Share. Right. I'm sharing. So can everybody see Rightmove?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Liverpool, I'm going to go to L6, which is where Francis didn't want, and then maybe half a mile in this property. So I've gone to Rightmove. I put my postcode in. I put a quarter of a mile from that asset, and then we're going to look at properties for sale. I wanted us to find a deal in Liverpool. So this is how you find a deal. So you go to L. We can do any L19.
That's done.
Okay, L19. Should we get a 3-bed?
Yes.
Or 4-bed?
Mm-hmm.
Let's try and get a 4-bed because
Ooh.
4-beds are really hard to find. One, and also when you find it and you rent it, it's going to be rented every day. You're not going to have struggle.
Yeah.
So what I've done, so what you need to do is you go to the highest price here, and then put in the oldest listed. Yeah. Click oldest listed. Why? Because the people that have had this house, oh my goodness, they're not a lot actually. So the oldest listed house, that means that those people are usually desperate to sell. But let's put a price on it. Should we put 250 or 150?
150.
150.
Let's see if there are any.
There aren't any.
No.
4 beds. But so if let's go for a 3-bed, because we could do a 3-bed with 2 reception rooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's only and let's put a mile radius. So if you put oldest listed, these are all tricks of the trade I'm going to share with you today. So that means that they have been hanging around the longest. They've had thousands of views. They are tired. They just want to get rid of this property, but somehow they are stuck. So when I put oldest property, I came up with this property here on Fenton Green L24. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the fact that it's purple bricks, that means, and the fact that it's this 0203 number. So that tells me that this person has tried selling this property. They're really stuck on this price. You need to go in and offer them that price of 129, and then do all the perimeters that we did before to see if we can get the maximum rent that we can. So, yeah. So this is possibly a deal. It's a 3-bed terrace. It's an old house. Yeah. So the rooms are likely to be bigger. Okay. So, and you can see from the garden that, and I think they've got a shed there, which then means that
what do they mean by 949 years of lease? Why not freehold? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Because so this house is a council house, I think, and the council has got 909. So what happened was the councils started selling off these assets. This is what Francis was saying before, that the Liverpool Council don't own any more properties.
Yes, they don't.
So they've sold them off, but they've sold the lease because they want to control the land. So if you have a leasehold property, this is why another reason why I stay away from shared ownership is because you don't control the land. So you could finish paying it all off, and now you want to put it in a trust. Now, when you go to put it in a trust, the trust will say, well, you don't own the land, so we're not going to put it in a trust. So you need to get the freehold. Yeah. Now, the owner of the freehold, that's the developer, will say, well, we could sell you the leasehold, the freehold for, $500,000 if you've got it, because this is an unregulated industry. So I would stay away from it. But if it's 999 years, you're probably not going to be around, and neither are your sons and daughters and their sons and their daughters. So it's probably okay. But if it's a 125-year lease, which most of these new builds are, I wouldn't bother. It's the lease is too short. So this is probably something really to look at. This is a 3-bed on Moss Street in Garston. It's been on the market since June last year. So that means that these people are possibly desperate to sell. It's in fairly good condition. Yeah, as you can see from this thing. We could look at this, we could look at the room plan as well. So this, when I look at this, I'm thinking that's probably going to be a really good asset to have a look at. Obviously, we need to interrogate it a bit more like we did last time. So this is another one on Wooden Lane. It's a townhouse. It's 3-bed. It's been on the market since August last year. So it's got purple chairs. It's the style of the chair is telling me that
it's an old person.
It's an old person. So this is probably a probate property. So the family are probably fighting over who owns how many shares in this property. So if you go in and speak to the family and then try and sort the problem out for them, you'll probably be able to get that deal. And it's very cheap at 125 as well. So if you could solve this problem for them, I don't know how much it's worth, but this is definitely one that ticks a box for me. It's 3-bed, it's fairly rentable. You can just buy that and you're ready to go. Yeah, a bit of a coat of paint. So why would I not buy this house and instead do a shared ownership house with all sorts of complications on it as well? And also, if I divide that by 4, I only need to earn about £30,000 to secure a mortgage on this house. And I'm not buying it from a registered social landlord. So I don't have
Quick question.
Yeah.
If I earn £30,000 a year, obviously before tax, and I have 3-4 other properties, would they still give me a mortgage based off that 30,000?
If you've already got houses,
yeah.
So you're going to buy this as a buy to let.
Yes,
you only need to earn £25,000.
Okay. So they don't count the other costs, the other properties.
They do, because they're also bringing in an income.
Yes.
But you just need to earn £25,000. Yeah. So this is another one. The shape of the house is telling me it's good room sizes, as well as end terrace is facing the other way. And again, this is a good property to really start to have a look at. This one I would run 100 miles away from, because it's a flat. I'm going to get, so it's been on, actually, I'm telling you a lie. This property, if their lease is up and they're stuck and they can't afford the lease, so they've asked them for £10,000 to extend the lease. You've got £10,000. You then go in and negotiate with this seller and you say, I'll pay for your lease if you rent the house to me. This is your serviced accommodation. So they continue to own the house. You've extended the lease for them. So you've solved their issue. So the reason it's been on the market, I think, is because their lease or the service charges are things they can't pay.
What guarantee would you have that they won't turn around after a bit and say,
you need it's all done through solicitors and legal teams.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not done by word of mouth. So that's that one. This is another property. It's a mid-terrace. It's an old style 1940s house. I think this one is, possibly 1940s. Again, this is another All Saints house that you could have a look at. So there are houses in Liverpool, 3-bed houses that you can look at that are worth. This one is 75, so that tells me that there's a problem with it that you need to solve.
They claim it's well maintained. That's the description.
I think it's a flat. Is it a flat?
No, it's a terrace.
It's a terrace. Yeah, so this photograph tells me that there's a problem. Is there a structural problem? Why are they not showing me the roof of this house? So there might be a problem. There might not be, but usually tell that there's a problem within the photographs of the. No, there's no leak. There's no leak. Why they shot this anyway? There's no leak. So I wonder why it is 75,000. So definitely there's a problem there as well. So basically, I was just showing you that you can find houses in Liverpool that are within your reach, but you might need to look a bit further afield. This is a slightly newer property. Guide price is 90,000. Modern method of auction. So this one I wouldn't even entertain buying this property, because the modern method of auction has got lots and lots of hidden fees. So you might buy it for 90 or 120, and then you end up with fees of say 30,000 to clear this, sale. So again, these are just some of the things that you need to look at. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a flavor of property in Liverpool. Again, I just did it randomly, L19. And just gives you an insight into what you need to look at when you're looking at property, when you're buying. Is that okay for today?
Wow, it's absolutely brilliant. What a treat. What a menu buffet.
Oh,
I'm
thank you
excited.
so much.
I'm excited to even go and check out those properties in L19. It was one of those places we're not even looking at.
I hope that helps.
Yeah.
I hope that helps people that want to look at properties. I do like properties in Liverpool. I drive around L8, L7, L6.
L8 has become high property.
L8 is quite high, especially since I built that Tesco and all that Smith Down Road. But you could go a little bit further. I know they're developing up north near Aintree. And definitely, I would definitely look at Speak if I was investing.
Somewhere to think about, because when you think about Speak, you think about, oh my God, the boonies. But having looked at what's available, it is still affordable.
Yeah, you need to buy property that is not great and sit on it tight. The reason why I like Speak, I used to drive through there, is because one, the houses are big. And then in the future, the LHA rate in Liverpool is already 5 for 3-bed. I think it's just shy of 600, and it's going to go up on the 1st. So
the 2 beds are now 800. 800.
Yeah, but the LHA rate is the minimum that if I got a council tenant, is the minimum they will pay. So I always go off that LHA rate. So if I know that the LHA rate is 600, so I know that the minimum, whatever happens, the minimum rent I'm going to get is 600.
600.
So I know that if I'm buying 100K of property, 600, that's roughly 6% return, 5% return. On that asset, you sit on it for 20 years, 15 years. Property is a long game. And already, if you get 600, you'll be able to pay your child's university fees at that price. So I would look at Speak down south, and maybe a little bit further up. I wouldn't buy in the university area because the building of new apartments has
developers won't let you buy anything. They just grab up everything super quick.
I don't think it's even that. It's the fact that if you've got a normal house, you'll be competing. The student will be wanting the fastest internet, the shortest trip to their
uni,
and then you're competing with that, and there's no way you can provide that. So and also with all these apartments and serviced accommodation apartments, it's going to be really, you're setting yourself up on a really high bar to fail in that property. And it's not very hard to go bankrupt in property. It's not very hard at all, as I've shown you that just making these little checks can make the difference between being bankrupt very quickly and keeping your skin in the game.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rahima. We really
I hope that was okay.
Poverty warrior, you really are.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
what you shared with us people you paid to learn this. And we've been telling people, if you don't, you pay someone a lot of money to learn the things we have had the total privilege of getting you to access for free. So
thank you so much.
So thank you so much.
If anybody's buying their first house, they can drop me an email and we can scrutinize it. I can't promise that I'll have the time. I know I'm meeting Rachel and Shade.
Yeah.
And I think we might do Tuesday next week or the following Tuesday. I need to give them a shout so that we can arrange that. But thank you for inviting me, for trusting me that I could deliver. I hope I've delivered.
You have, I hope I've over-delivered. that I can say with confidence, because it's not easy to find somebody who gives you so much. A lot of presenters give you the bare minimum, and you think, I wish I'd found somebody else. No, not on this specific project. We've had people just being so generous, and we are so thankful. Yeah. Oh,
thank you so much. Now I need to hand over the hosting. Let me see if I can do it easier this time.
Oh, no worries. I'll just remove permissions. That's it. So that's it. Sorted.
I'm happy with that.
Sorted.
Okay. Right. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Take care. And ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of today's session. We have another session with two brilliant facilitators, Mrs. Ssali and Mrs. Barbara Nabunya. No, she's not Nabunya. Nabunya. I always confuse because Nabunya is in Uganda. Okay, so we have those two, and we're going to be focusing on financial resilience in general. But we're going to bring a different flavor to financial resilience, and that is going to be on the 20th of February. So please don't miss if you do not have to. And if you are still looking for free data SIM cards, we've got them. I've got 14 or 2, and I've got only 8 of these left. 24 gigs of data for free. It lasts up to 24 months. You don't have to pay a penny for them. And then after those 24 months, you can come back to us and we'll see whether we can renegotiate. This one has £15 unlimited calls and unlimited texts as well. So don't sit at home and say, I can't even afford data. I can't connect. I can't communicate. We are here to serve you if you're based in Merseyside. That means Houghton, Knowsley, St. Helens, Wirral, Liverpool. Yeah, those areas. Please reach out. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. We appreciate your patience, and we wish you an amazing evening tonight. Take care. God bless. Bye.